A voice urgently calls out Serena's name over a sun-drenched sea. Serena lies unconscious, surrounded by a faint golden glow. Waking on a beach with a maid, she confusedly asks, "The ocean?" As the maid leads her toward a grand estate, Serena wonders if she is dreaming. Looking at her reflection, she questions her own identity. She murmurs in disbelief, "A court saintess?" From a balcony, she gazes out at the vast, sparkling sea. A map reveals her location, the maritime kingdom of Aleza. In disbelief, she touches her face, wondering if this is truly Aleza. As a maid calls her name, Serena realizes this isn't a dream and questions who she has become. The scene transitions with an image of growing, thorny vines. She is Serena Bernstein, the court saintessa, a name she recognizes as the mother of the novel's final boss, Xavier the Tyrant, and she panics at the thought of becoming his mother. Her eyes widen in terror at the dawning realization. She recoils in horror, exclaiming, "I've become the mother of the final boss?" The narration reflects on the common fantasy of being reincarnated into the body of a favorite character. She recalls dreaming of such a thing, but as a carriage awaits, she knows this is different. Dejected, she laments her fate, questioning why it had to be the final boss's mother. Now dressed for an occasion, she realizes she's heading to the palace, prompting her maid to ask if she's still dazed. As her carriage approaches a magnificent castle, a chilling question appears. Will she be executed by the royal family? She remembers the novel's plot. For giving birth to the tyrant Xavier, Serena was punished with cruel torture and ultimately executed by public crucifixion. Arriving at the palace gates, she fears she is destined to follow the story and be executed. Her expression hardens with resolve as she vows not to sit around and wait for her execution. A brown-haired man grabs her arm as she moves to enter the palace. Filled with determination, she promises herself she will fight back and change her fate, starting now. Taking her first steps into the palace, she resolves that her immediate goal is survival. Realizing she's arrived about 30 years before the main story begins, she watches as two guards open massive doors for her. Entering the throne room, she is immediately overwhelmed by the intense, piercing stares of the assembled nobles, feeling as if their gazes are burning right through her. A man with dark hair commands her to kneel and offer her greetings. Now kneeling before the throne, she formally introduces herself to the king. A title card identifies the stern, white-haired man on the throne as Ferdinand Zeiss, King of Aleza. From her kneeling position, she realizes the man standing beside the king must be Volkart. Prince Volkart Zeiss, the first prince of Aleza, formally announces the beginning of the court saintess's appointment ceremony. Serena stares in horror, remembering that the first prince, Volkart, is the one who personally orders her execution in the novel. Prince Volkart rests his head on his hand and coolly says, "Let's begin." Sensing his unfriendly aura, Serena resolves to get through the ceremony and then stay far away from the royal family. Her primary concern becomes avoiding an encounter with the second prince. Just then, a silver-haired man walks past, prompting her to think, how absurd. The silver-haired man passes by without a glance, his presence imposing. The narration highlights his distinctive silver hair. A close-up reveals his striking imperial jadeite eyes. Serena's expression fills with shock as she recognizes him. The silver-haired prince turns to his brother, chiding him for being late. She identifies him with a jolt. Dietrich, the future father of Xavier the Tyrant. A title card introduces Dietrich Zeiss, second prince of Aleza, as Serena thinks of him as the man who will become her husband. Dietrich tells Volkart to stop picking on the new saintesses, but Volkart retorts that their quality has undeniably been lacking lately. Serena remains kneeling, her heart heavy with anxiety. Dietrich steps toward her, coldly demanding to know who sent her and where she came from. He looks down on her and accuses her of being just another fake saintess. The accusation stuns Serena, while Prince Volkart sharply tells Dietrich to watch his mouth. The black-haired man in uniform tells the saintess not to worry, as it's rare for one to fulfill their role. The white-haired woman worries that they doubt she is the real saintess. The black-haired man remarks on his brother's ridiculous optimism. The silver-haired man glares with cold intensity. A sudden flash of steel appears before the white-haired woman's startled eyes. The silver-haired man threatens her with her life for deceiving the royal family, asking if she is prepared. She's shocked to realize this is her supposed husband, and frantically insists she is not an imposter. Serena remembers that she must survive long enough for Xavier to be born. The silver-haired man holds his sword to a kneeling Serena, the scene ending. A narrator notes that the second prince is supposed to be Selena's husband. The second prince threatens the kneeling Serena with his sword. The silver-haired man slowly sheathes his sword as Serena watches him warily. The queen consort, Therese Zeiss, coldly suggests they should condemn the girl as an example. Startled, Serena realizes that her inaction has caused the story to change. She panics, fearing her execution could happen sooner than she expected. The black-haired man, Volbart, tells his mother she's being too hasty, as the girl was sent officially. Queen Consort Therese dismisses his concerns, stating many would try to infiltrate the palace. Volbart declares to the silver-haired man that he will prove the saintess's legitimacy right now. Serena announces her intention to prove she is a capable saintess. She stands tall, radiating a newfound and determined aura. On a nearby hill, onlookers comment on the new saintess's arrival, expressing hope that she will be all right. A blonde priest expresses his relief that the next saintess has arrived to manage the temple. An older nobleman in a red cape cautions the priest that it is too early to feel relieved. Therese adds that if the girl cannot summon the divine beast today, she will be severely punished, as an anxious Serena stands between the two princes. The assembled party stands before a grand statue of a horned whale. This statue is introduced as the sacred beast, Lady Frida, a guardian from the founding myth. The priest remarks that the real beast is much bigger, surprising Serena. He offers encouragement, which Serena internally notes is his attempt at support. He gravely warns that many saintesses fail to summon the beast and are dismissed, which horrifies her. Apologizing for scaring her, the priest offers her a gift. It's a delicate necklace, an heirloom passed down through generations of priests. He explains the necklace might help her connect with Lady Frida. Serena accepts the gift with a quiet "thank you." With renewed determination, Serena walks ahead of the priest. She stands at the edge of a beautiful, sunlit cliff overlooking the ocean. A narration explains that the nation of Aleza relies on the sacred beast's divine messages, which only the saintess can hear. Therefore, the narration concludes, the saintess is an irreplaceable figure in the country. Serena steels her nerves with a determined gaze. The silver-haired man condescendingly says she can try, though he believes it's a waste of time. Serena angrily retorts that she has no choice but to try, as failure means execution. He looks down at her and asks if she truly wants to become a saintess. They walk together along a sunlit colonnade. Serena privately fumes, wondering why the original Serena married this man just for his looks. She explains that her duty is to receive and deliver the divine message, and the silver-haired man's eye twitches in annoyance. Looking out over the landscape, Serena reaffirms her vow to summon the sacred beast. Standing on a cliff above the water, she recalls that in the novel, the saintess summoned the beast by singing a song. She closes her eyes, focusing on the song she must sing. She opens her eyes in horror, suddenly realizing she knows the lyrics but has no idea what the melody is. The silver-haired man watches as she kneels on the cliff, frozen in silent panic. A strange sound leaves Serena utterly bewildered. Her thoughts swirl with confusion as she realizes a beautiful singing voice is the source. Inspired, Serena closes her eyes and begins to sing with all her heart. Her sudden song startles the silver-haired man and the royal entourage. She continues to sing, her voice resonating with a brilliant, magical light. Her song echoes across the vast ocean cove. Whoosh! From the depths, the magnificent horned whale, Lady Frida, leaps into the air. The black-haired man, Volbart, stares in disbelief, amazed she summoned the sacred beast already. The blonde man and older noblemen are stunned by her unprecedented power, while Queen Consort Therese watches with a clenched fist. The sacred beast majestically swims through the rocky archway. Serena is overwhelmed with relief, whispering that it came. The silver-haired man admits it wasn't just luck, much to Serena's annoyance. The enormous sacred beast swims directly toward them. Splash! It playfully sprays Serena and the silver-haired man with water. Serena watches the beast, admitting its actions surprised her. Suddenly, she spots a child on the rocks below, warning that he's in danger. A massive wave crashes toward the terrified child, clinging to the cliffside. The silver-haired man urgently commands his guards to get the child out of there now. He turns to Serena, ordering her to listen to the divine message immediately. She protests in a panic, insisting they must save the child first. He explains that hearing the oracle is the fastest way to stop the beast's rampage. He adds a condescending jab, saying that's assuming she's the real saintess. Staring back defiantly, Serena firmly states that she is. She clutches the necklace from the priest, stealing her resolve. The blonde man worries aloud, questioning if she can hear the oracle in such a frantic state. The older nobleman declares this is her chance to prove herself, as Therese scoffs dismissively. The queen consort smirks, thinking that merely summoning the beast is not enough to prove she is the saintess. Therese silently vows to punish the girl if she fails to hear the message. Serena kneels, desperately praying to Lady Frida to let her hear the divine message. A divine aura envelops her as she continues her fervent prayer. The silver-haired man suddenly grabs her hand, pulling her back. A massive wall of water surges toward the cliff edge, shocking Serena. A shimmering green shield of magic erupts from the silver-haired man's hand, blocking the wave. Serena is stunned, realizing with a flash of insight that the tyrant father of Xavier could use magic, and so could her future son. He urges her to keep going, but she hesitates, stammering in fear. The silver-haired man wonders if a fake saintess could truly use magic to stop the waves. A guard points and yells a warning that there's more coming. The sacred beast thrashes wildly, endangering the small child still trapped on the rocks. As the beast's tail slams down, creating another tidal wave, the silver-haired man watches in horror. Remembering the dark magic of the future tyrant Xavier, Serena unleashes her own latent power. A glowing orb forms between her hands, surrounded by elegant, icy butterflies. The magic shoots forward, instantly freezing the massive, cresting wave. The child on the cliffside is now safe behind the wall of ice. Serena stares at her hands in disbelief, wondering, did I do it? From the cliff, the guards watch in awe as her magic holds the frozen wave suspended in a protective sphere. Serena looks on, knowing that this power would one day be feared as dark magic. The guards excitedly chatter, convinced that her incredible magic proves she is the real saintess. Serena rushes to the now safe child, who thanks her for the rescue. The older nobleman approaches, flanked by the princes, and acknowledges that the saintess has shown him something interesting. He leans in and asks the critical question, was she able to get the message from the sacred beast? Serena suddenly remembers the divine message she was supposed to receive. Standing on the cliff with the silver-haired man, she worries that she couldn't hear it. Whoosh! A massive column of water shoots up from the sea, suddenly submerged. Serena is pulled deeper into the ocean, stunned by the sudden turn of events. As she sinks, she feels an unexpected warmth emanating from the sacred beast below. Floating in the deep, she whispers Frida's name as the beast's eye opens before her. The beast's eye glimmers with divine light as the water swirls around them. Serena finds herself back on land, gasping in shock from the sudden vision. A cryptic message echoes in her mind. A prophecy of red tears, a white swine, repentance, and the goddess's judgment. She returns to reality, still kneeling on the grassy cliff before the older nobleman. She looks up in a daze, wondering if that was truly the divine message. The older nobleman addresses her as saintess, and she nervously affirms her identity. He acknowledges her great power, expressing his hope that she will use it for the good of Aleza. Volbart watches in awe, while the silver-haired man remains silent and unreadable. Serena internally celebrates, wondering if she has finally escaped her execution. Bowing respectfully, she promises the older nobleman that she will do her best. Queen Consort Therese scoffs from afar, wondering why royal men are so easily swayed by saintesses. Volbart approaches to congratulate her, and a startled Serena stumbles backward. He quickly catches her, asking if she is all right. She apologizes, claiming she is just tired. With a kind smile, Volbart gently urges her to rest well today. Serena eyes him with suspicion, remembering that in the novel, Volbart was the one who executed her, and she vows not to trust him. Her gaze shifts to the silver-haired man, now identified as Dietrich. She concludes she can't get close to Dietrich either, feeling trapped. Determined, she reaffirms that she has not yet escaped her fate and must remain vigilant. Volbart reports to the older nobleman that Serena's magic was intriguing and suggests she has a rare power. The older nobleman stares down at Volbart, who looks back with a shocked expression. The nobleman notes that while her background is questionable, it might make her easier to control. He then declares that the one who marries the saintess will become the next king. The declaration sends a shockwave through both Volbart and Dietrich. The scene transitions to a sweeping view of a grand palace complex. As the sun sets, the focus settles on a magnificent cathedral. Inside, the blonde priest leads a solemn Serena through a sun-drenched hall. She kneels in prayer before the towering statue of a goddess. She sheepishly explains to the priest that she was only praying because he told her to. The priest thanks her for her efforts and offers to take her to her room. He gives a curious glance as she follows him through the pristine white halls. As they step outside, a crowd below erupts in cheers, hailing the new saintess and Aleza. Serena looks down at the assembled people, confused by the sudden gathering. The crowd gossips excitedly about how she instantly summoned Lady Frida and used incredible magic. The priest suggests she take this opportunity to introduce herself to her new followers. He smiles warmly, formally proclaiming that she has become the saintess of Aleza. Realizing everyone awaits her words, Serena accepts her new reality. To live, she must fully embrace the role of a saintess. She closes her eyes for a moment, gathering her resolve. Facing the crowd, she introduces herself as Serena Bernstein, the newly honored saintess. She stands with a graceful smile, surrounded by an ethereal, holy light. Offering a blessing from Goddess Lattice, she captivates the adoring crowd below. The people chant her name with fervor, calling out Lady Serena and Saintess. Serena waves back, a thankful smile on her face as she accepts their praise. She remembers her original fate, executed for birthing the tyrant Xavier, branded a villainess for using dark magic. With newfound determination, she vows to become the perfect saintess to avoid the execution route and ensure no one ever calls her a villainess. Serena asks the priest if her speech was good enough, and he confirms it was. Relieved, she expresses her happiness and privately longs to rest in her room. A lady in waiting in a yellow dress arrives, prompting the priest to wonder why she is there. When told she is being escorted to the floral palace, the priest clarifies that it's for consort candidates. Serena is shocked, questioning why on earth she would be sent there. The scene transitions to a grand, moonlit palace at night. A closer view reveals the magnificent building's name, the Floral Palace. She realizes this follows the novel, since the original Serena became Dietrich's consort. Inside, she is greeted by two long lines of maids standing at attention. With a gentle smile, she simply thanks them for the welcome. She panics internally, realizing with dread that things are going exactly according to the story. The maids lead her into an ornate room, which she notes is beautiful. Looking out at the ocean from her balcony, she feels the room is too grand for her. A maid offers to draw her a bath before her meal, leaving Serena confused. Suddenly, she gasps, her eyes widening in shock at an unexpected sight. The silver-haired man, Dietrich, stands grimly in her doorway. He glares at her, coldly demanding to know why she is in this room. Serena stands frozen, completely stunned by his sudden appearance. She recognizes him with a jolt, her mind screaming his name, Dietrich. Ignoring her, he angrily asks the maids why that woman is in his room. A blonde maid calmly explains that it is the king's order for Lady Serena to stay there. Dietrich is visibly taken aback, questioning his father's direct command. He turns slightly, his expression unreadable as a tense silence fills the room. Serena nervously clutches her dress, utterly confused by the turn of events. Internally panicking with a comical look of horror, she tells herself to wait. Her mind continues to spiral as she wonders why this is happening to her. A maid whispers that His Highness won't do anything inappropriate, shocking Serena with the implication. Excusing themselves, the maids peek back before closing the door. Slam. The door shuts, leaving a flustered Serena alone with Dietrich. Dietrich continues to watch her with a severe, penetrating gaze. Trapped in panic, she frantically wonders what she should do now. A heavy, awkward silence stretches between them in the grand room. She laments that, after trying so hard to avoid him, they are now alone together. The magnificent palace stands silent under the clear sky. He breaks the silence, coldly advising her to leave the room for her own good. Confused by his unexpected advice, she asks him to explain his reasoning. He suddenly steps forward, closing the distance between them. Startled by his proximity, she gasps, her face flushing in shock. She looks up in bewilderment as he gently reaches toward her face. He carefully takes a lock of her long white hair in his hand. Completely baffled by his actions, she internally screams, "What is going on?" He pulls back, questioning her overly dramatic reaction. He coldly tells her not to get the wrong idea, insisting he's not interested in her. She internally scoffs at marrying her future executioner, then asks what he was doing. He reveals his palm, explaining that she had something in her hair. She stares at glowing blue snowflake crystals, recognizing the pattern from her ice magic. He explains they are sea blossoms, and that legend says a handful can grant any wish. Her eyes widen in amazement as she repeats, "Any wish will come true?" She realizes this powerful item was never in the novel, and wonders how it got there. As he turns away, he clarifies that it's a blessing mark from the sacred beast. Legend says the sacred beast seeks a saintess to represent the goddess. This saintess is bestowed a blessing that attracts the goddess's attention, causing miracles to occur. A stunned Serena wonders aloud if such a thing is truly possible. Dietrich warns her that people with insatiable desires will seek the sea blossoms, putting her life in danger. Serena argues that it would be safer for her to stay there with him. He clarifies that the one who wants the blessing most is His Majesty the King. Dietrich grimly thinks that the king will stop at nothing to get his wish. He reveals that the previous saintess who stayed in this room lost her freedom after receiving the beast's blessing. Shocked, Serena realizes a saintess occupied this room before her. Dietrich looks away, his expression somber and unreadable. Serena watches him in silent contemplation. She realizes the former owner must have been someone special to Dietrich. With a polite smile, Serena offers to have her room changed immediately. She asks him if that would be okay. He bluntly refuses, and a confused Serena demands to know why. Dietrich sternly tells her to leave not just the palace, but the entire royal capital. The scene shifts to a different room, where a dark-haired woman faces 3 maids. He thrusts the jar into her hands, ordering her to keep it a secret from everyone. Serena's thoughts race. She wants to leave to get away from Dietrich. She clutches the jar, her expression hardening with resolve. Serena explains that leaving is difficult because she has nowhere else to go. He asks about her hometown, and she panics internally, knowing she's a minor character without one. Dietrich asks if she has anyone she can rely on. Holding the jar, she sadly accepts that she is all alone in this world. Slam! A dark-haired woman in a purple dress bursts into the room, calling Dietrich's name. The woman beams, expressing her surprise and delight at finding him there. Both Serena and Dietrich are bewildered by the sudden intrusion. Rushing past a maid, the woman exclaims that she's searched everywhere for him. She tries to speak with Dietrich, but he coldly rebuffs her for entering without permission. As Dietrich pushes her away, Serena observes their closeness, wondering if she's a new character. Annoyed, he tells the woman to let go, calling her Diana. Serena is horrified, realizing Diana is the mother of the novel's protagonist, the legendary saintess. The 3 of them stand in a tense triangle as Diana clings to Dietrich. Diana smiles sweetly, feigning surprise as she finally acknowledges Serena's presence. With a false apology, Diana claims she didn't notice Serena was there. This is an example of an unsafe password. Password 123. It is easy to guess because it uses a common word followed by numbers. This is an example of an article in which the main subject is a male. Diana is the mother of the protagonist and a legendary saintess who defeated a tyrant. It continues, stating she replaced the fallen saintess Serena and saved the kingdom. The scene transitions to a view of a White Castle tower. An illustration contrasts Serena, the tyrant's mother, with Diana, the world's hero. Another image from the story shows Diana becoming Volbart's wife. Serena internally panics, wondering why the novel's true saintess is here so early. Diana pleads with Dietrich to see something, but he coldly directs her to Volbart. Serena recalls the novel's description of Diana as pure and humble, noting how different she is in person as she tries to slip away. Realizing Diana is the future wife of her executioner, Serena resolves to stay far away from her and quietly leaves the room. A man's voice calls out, asking if she is all right as the maids watch her with concern. Serena turns to the maids and asks if she can switch to another room. Volpart peers in the doorway, asking if something is wrong. Serena freezes in shock, her mind reeling as she wonders why Volpart is there. Serena politely explains she was ordered by the king to reside in the Floral Palace. Diana peeks into the room, cheerfully calling out for Volpart. Taking his arm, Diana dismissively acknowledges Serena's continued presence. Volpart introduces Diana as the new saintess, shocking Serena while Dietrich observes. Diana questions why Serena is in the Floral Palace, a place reserved for royalty. Serena clarifies it was a royal command, internally panicking that being seen as a queen candidate is a death sentence. Flinch, Dietrich scolds Diana for being there, but she claims she has the right as his cousin. Serena processes the family connection, realizing Diana and Dietrich are step-cousins through their half-brother relationship, as a family tree illustrates their lineage. The narration explains Diana's family ties, clarifying she is Volkart's maternal cousin and therefore the niece of his mother, Beatrice. Diana eagerly invites Dietrich to the Starry Night Festival, and Serena quietly processes the name of the event. A description explains, the Starry Night is a beautiful annual event where glowing starfish gather to spawn. At a glowing private beach, Diana thanks Volkart for bringing her, and Serena takes in the vast, beautiful scenery. Watching the two together, Serena feels like a third wheel at a lover's event. Diana glances back at Serena with a subtle, knowing smirk. Serena reassures herself, thinking Diana will marry Volkart anyway. She recalls from the novel that the romantic Starry Night event originally involved the future son of Volkart and Diana. Looking out at the beautiful sea, Serena concedes that at least the scenery is lovely. A guard approaches Volpart with a report, interrupting the quiet moment. Volpart excuses himself to handle the matter, telling Serena to enjoy the view. Serena watches him leave with Diana, reminded that this kind-faced man will one day be her executioner. Diana turns back with a bright smile, inviting Serena to walk with her. As they stroll by the water, Diana remarks on the rare beauty of the night, prompting Serena to notice the moon's absence. Diana suddenly stops and pointedly asks Serena why she chose to become a saintess. She continues her interrogation, suggesting Serena may not be able to handle the duties. Serena panics internally, unable to reveal the true, chaotic circumstances of her new role. Diana presses for a reason, implying the job requires a great motivation. She coldly accuses Serena of becoming a saintess just to get close to the royal family, leaving Serena stunned into silence. With a condescending tone, Diana laments how troublesome people who don't know their place can be. Oh! A sudden gust of wind snatches Diana's hat, sending it flying toward the ocean waves. Panicking that her hat will be lost, Diana orders Serena to retrieve it immediately. With tears in her eyes, Diana claims she's too scared to go in the water, then manipulates Serena by saying a saintess should be fine. Serena reluctantly agrees to get the hat, much to Diana's surprised delight. Sigh. Resigned, Serena wades into the surf, determined to end the situation quickly and prevent Diana from getting wet. She successfully snatches the hat just as a wave rolls in. A sudden, sharp jolt of pain makes her gasp in shock. Reeling back in the water, she is horrified to see several glowing jellyfish surrounding her. Her eyes widen in dawning horror as she identifies the creatures. Wait, she recognizes the jellyfish, her mind racing as she realizes the imminent danger. The terrible truth hits her. They are extremely poisonous. Ha! The poison surges through her as a gloved hand suddenly grabs her from behind. Her vision fades as she weakly questions who has come to her aid. Volbart holds her securely in his arms, his face etched with worry. An aide rushes over, calling out to Volkart in alarm. A promotional image for the series is shown. Back on the beach, his aides demand to know what happened to the saintess. An aide reports she was poisoned by a blue jellyfish, and Volkart immediately orders him to summon the court physician. Her eyes glaze over as she loses consciousness in Volkart's arms. Holding her, he looks down and thinks how identical she is to someone he once knew. In a flashback, a younger Voltern is told by his father to greet a kneeling, white-haired saintess. The woman introduces herself as Celestia, the court saint of Alessa, offering her greetings to the young Prince Volkart. A flashback reveals Volkart's father died in an accident during a festival. The white-haired saintess, Celestia, rushes to the fallen king's side. Her face is etched with horror and shock. A horrified crowd, including a young Volkart and Diana, witnesses the tragedy. At the funeral, it's revealed Saintess Celestia was favored by the king and was expected to become his third queen. Amidst the mourning for the late king, the narration notes the birth of Prince Dietrich. A young Volkart reflects on the unavoidable chaos that followed his stable father's death. Returning to the present, Volkart carries an unconscious Serena, urgently calling for the chief physician. An aide reports to the chief physician that the saintess was poisoned on her left foot by a blue jellyfish. He gently holds the pained Serena, who weakly apologizes as he tells her to get checked up. After a brief examination, the physician delivers a grim verdict. They must amputate her leg. Serena cries out in disbelief, while Volkart grimly thinks to himself that it's just as he expected. Diana bursts into fake tears, loudly apologizing and blaming herself for Serena losing her leg. Volkart explains that if the poison from the jellyfish spreads, there will be no way to save her, so they must amputate quickly. She stares in terror at a large, serrated surgical saw, desperately begging them to wait. Serena frantically pleads with them, insisting that there must be an antidote. Volkart coldly informs her that no cure for the blue jellyfish's poison has ever been found, leaving her stunned. She recalls from the novel that, at this point in the story, 30 years ago, an antidote truly hadn't been discovered yet. A sudden surge of brilliant blue holy energy erupts from her body, shocking the onlookers. Both Volkart and the physician stare in awe as the physician identifies it as the holy power of the saintess. The physician notes her power is suppressing the poison's progression, and Serena asks him to gather specific items. She lists the 3 ingredients for the antidote: seaweed, honey from bush mustards, and the bark of a 3-leaf tree. An aide argues that the chief physician has already tried that formula without success and urges her to make a decision quickly. Serena provides the final, crucial instruction: boil the ingredients with water from the temple spring, surprising the physician. The physician is astonished, realizing the purification effect from the temple spring water was the missing key to the antidote. He agrees to try her formula, but notes a critical condition: the water shallow grass must be fresh. Volkart, now wearing a white cape, rises to leave, but Diana calls out his name. She grabs his arm, asking if he's going to get the seaweed and warning him about the dangerous blue jellyfish. He coldly rebuffs her, stating that the saintess's safety is directly linked to the survival of the kingdom. Diana screams his name as he remains resolute, ready to depart. Her expression twists into one of pure fury and resentment. Dietrich appears in the doorway, blocking Volkart's path. As the physician and his aides watch, the 2 men have a silent standoff. Serena struggles to maintain her holy power, realizing it won't last much longer. She despairs, thinking she's on a death route that never existed in the novel, and laments that she doesn't have a hero to help her like the original protagonist did. She awakens with a start, looking around the room in confusion. Looking down, she's stunned to see her leg is bandaged, but still intact. The physician and Volkart are beside her. The doctor explains the antidote worked, and the swelling will subside, much to her relief. The physician expresses his deep gratitude, which confuses Serena, who believes she should be the one thanking him. He explains that her guidance helped him find the jellyfish antidote he'd sought for years, which will now save countless lives. She smiles, relieved, while secretly acknowledging her knowledge came entirely from the novel. Dietrich suddenly appears, remarking on her unexpected medical knowledge, and Serena wonders why he's there. Volkart explains that Dietrich was the one who helped gather the materials for the antidote. Serena apologizes for all the trouble she caused. She turns to both men and sincerely thanks them for their help. Looking directly at Dietrich, she tells him she owes him one for his efforts. Diana suddenly approaches Dietrich, saying she has something she wants to ask him. Volkart sternly tells Dietrich to stop, confusing Serena. Dietrich looks at Diana and pointedly reminds her that she must have known the blue jellyfish gather at the shore during the starry night. Diana stands in stunned silence, her face cloaked in shadow. Dietrich coldly asks if Diana knew about the jellyfish and still sent Serena to the water. In the tense room, Diana and Serena look down while Dietrich and Volkart stand grimly. Diana's face is cast in shadow, her expression sullen and unreadable. Dietrich then asks if he was also sent into danger knowingly to retrieve the antidote ingredients. Serena sits on her bed, looking shocked and overwhelmed by the confrontation. The scene darkens, filled with a tense, static-like energy. Feigning innocence, Diana tearfully claims she was being harassed and kept silent about it. An aide asks about the harassment as everyone turns their attention to Diana's accusation. With malicious intent gleaming in her eyes, Diana begins her lie. She falsely accuses Serena of taking her hat and throwing it into the sea. The physician and his aides gasp, completely shocked by the outrageous claim. The onlookers murmur in disbelief, questioning how Serena could do such a thing to Lady Diana. Utterly stunned by the lie, Serena can only whisper how terrible the situation is. She panics, trying to deny the accusation while realizing everyone is looking at her with suspicion. Diana gleefully continues her act, claiming Serena hates and constantly bullies her. An official expresses his disappointment in the saintess as Serena desperately tries to explain the wind blew the hat away. Dietrich steps forward, declaring that nothing more can be done, leaving Serena stunned by his words. Confused, Serena asks what he means, and he simply asks if she can stand. Dietrich pulls Serena to her feet to leave, warning her that staying plays into Diana's hands as Volkart and Diana shout for him to stop. As Volkart holds her back, Serena looks on, while Diana furiously calls it crazy to protect that woman's daughter. Dietrich coldly rebukes Diana, questioning her logic and warning her to use her head or risk losing his affection. Now, away from the scene, Serena asks Dietrich what just happened, confused why everyone suddenly believed Diana. She realizes that no matter how absurd the lie, everyone was siding with Diana. Pondering the strange event, Serena wonders if Diana has the power to control others. Dietrich confirms her suspicion, explaining that Diana's power doesn't work on him or his brothers. Serena speculates the power is tied to magic resistance, perhaps sparing priests or the blessed. She lets out a startled gasp. Without warning, Dietrich sweeps her up into his arms, leaving her speechless. "What?" she yells, completely flustered by his sudden action. He holds her close, calmly telling her not to struggle as she stares in bewilderment. The scene shifts to the grand exterior of the residence at night. Inside, 3 maids spot the pair and cry out Serena's name in shock. Dietrich carries her past the stunned staff, coolly stating that the situation is exactly what it looks like. Serena frantically denies it, explaining her leg is injured, but he quiets her, telling her to stop shouting. He reassures her that her leg is treated, and then asks the maids to give them some privacy. Serena panics internally, wondering what on earth he is saying. Serena protests that he's causing a misunderstanding, but he counters that it's more convenient this way. He explains Diana's magic temporarily forces people to follow her, a tactic she uses to target her enemies. He asks what she will do if her own servants are turned against her, isolating her completely. Gently setting her down on the bed, he trails off, letting the grim possibility hang in the air. They share an intense, silent gaze as the weight of his words settles between them. Serena looks up, her expression one of dawning horror and understanding. Dietrich announces a change of plans, offering her the use of the room for a while. He takes a seat nearby, and she nervously asks what he is trying to do. Crossing his arms, he observes that she clearly doesn't believe his intentions. He tells her she's the only one who still doesn't recognize the true power of the saintess. He proposes an alliance, come under his protection and pretend to have a good relationship, a thought which horrifies Serena as it could lead to her execution. She internally despairs, realizing that Diana is a direct threat, while the prince is trying to protect her, may be triggering the very death flags she wants to avoid. Overwhelmed by her impossible situation, she crouches on the floor in utter distress. The scene opens on a magnificent, sunlit cathedral. Inside, a blonde-haired priest stands before several acolytes in a bright, checkered hall. The priest smiles warmly at Serena, welcoming her to her second day and offering to teach her the duties of a saintess. He asks how she slept, mentioning he heard about last night's events, and Serena hesitantly confirms she's fine. He then slyly reveals he heard Prince Dietrich visited her, causing Serena to react with shock at his phrasing. Recalling Dietrich's terse command to get some sleep, she dismisses the priest's insinuation, insisting nothing happened. The priest notes the king seems fond of her and shares a rumor that whichever prince marries the saintess will become the next king. Serena is utterly stunned by this revelation, exclaiming, "What's with that?" She realizes this political rumor might explain Dietrich's hostile behavior toward her the previous day. The priest warns her that this rumor will ignite factional tensions and advises her to stay away from both princes to avoid trouble. Serena reaffirms her original goal to avoid the princes and simply fulfill her duties as a saintess. She asks what he means, and he explains that most saintesses lose their divine power when they become pregnant. Leaning in menacingly, he questions what she would do if a man tried to defile her. He suddenly grabs her wrist, pointing out that she couldn't possibly defend herself from a serious attack. With a confident smirk, he tightens his grip, claiming even a weak priest like him could easily overpower her. Serena stares in shock and confusion at the priest's sudden, aggressive turn as the scene promises to continue. Held by the wrist, she looks at the priest in disbelief. The blonde priest looks down at her hand with a calm, unreadable expression. He suddenly lets go, laughing and dismissing his aggressive behavior as just a joke. Serena tells him to stop playing games, but he insists he was only giving her a necessary warning. He advises her to be more aware of the threats around her, stating her position is crucial to Alyssa's future. The priest explains that while some want to use her power, others will see her as a hindrance to their plans. In a final chilling warning, he tells the saintess she's been thrown into a den of demons and must be careful. Darkness and light speckle the screen in a moody transition. In a brighter scene, three maids admire Serena in a beautiful new blue gown, asking how she likes it. Serena gets ready, as one of her maids questions the need for formal attire at an oracle analysis meeting. Another maid explains that the temple requested it, and expresses her relief that the gown arrived in time. Believing the formal wear is excessive for a simple discussion, Serena listens as her maids wish her a good day. Walking along a grand palace veranda, she notes the meeting is led by the temple but includes royalty and other key figures. She worries about the meeting, as the novel she read only gave its name, leaving her clueless about the atmosphere. She recalls the cryptic oracle she received, mentioning red tears, wings, and the goddess's lament as a spirit whale swims by. Serena smiles nervously, admitting to herself that she has absolutely no idea what the oracle means. While walking through the gardens, she is suddenly confronted by a dark-haired lady in a purple dress. The lady, Diana, sneers at Serena, accusing her of feigning disinterest in Prince Dietrich to seem more attractive. Lady Diana's eyes widen with a flash of crazed intensity. Serena thinks it's unbelievable that Diana, who tried to kill her, is speaking so casually, connecting it to the priest's warning. Her thoughts of peace are shattered as a sudden splash of water douses her. Drenched and shocked, Serena looks down at her ruined dress. She glares at Diana, who is holding a watering can, and angrily demands to know what she's doing. With a malicious grin, Diana warns Serena her arrogance won't last long, claiming that she also possesses the saintess's power. Serena is left completely bewildered by Diana's declaration. A stern woman in a red and black dress arrives, prompting a startled Diana to cry out, "Aunt!" The imposing woman, Beatrice, glares disapprovingly. Diana pleads with her aunt, who coldly replies that everything she does is for Diana's sake. Serena is struck with a sudden realization. Diana's saintess power must have already awakened. Beatrice scolds her niece for dawdling, telling her to hurry and change before she's late for the meeting. Not wanting to be involved in their dispute, Serena quietly excuses herself. As a wave of energy surrounds her, Serena processes the shocking truth. Diana has awakened her power, but is keeping it a secret. She is left to wonder what possible purpose Diana could have for hiding such a crucial ability. Serena arrives at the entrance of a grand hall where the council meeting is already underway. Serena apologizes for her late arrival. At the meeting table, Prince Volkart and Prince Dietrich sit with displeased expressions. An elderly, blonde-haired man chides her for being late to her first meeting. A title card introduces the stern chairman of the meeting, Conrad Weber. The blonde priest asks Serena why she didn't wear the requested formal attire. Serena tries to explain her circumstances, but Conrad Weber coldly dismisses her excuses. Conrad offers a chilling piece of advice. Her every move determines her position here. Serena realizes her lateness wasn't her fault, but was an intentional harassment ploy. Prince Volkart officially begins the Oracle analysis meeting, starting with the temple's perspective. The blonde priest recites the ominous oracle of red tears and white wings, concluding that it points towards some kind of disaster. Serena stands alone before the imposing council, the room's tension palpable. The priest elaborates, stating similar oracles in the past have referred to plagues or volcanic eruptions. Serena is stunned by the mention of volcanic eruptions, a terrible thought dawning on her. She remembers a passage from the novel about a volcanic disaster on a nearby island that wiped out everyone. Council members whisper their suspicions, suggesting she may have fabricated the oracle out of fear. A dark-haired lady dismisses Serena's credibility due to her humble birth, lateness, and improper attire. The lady smirks, declaring that if the oracle is false, the saintess must atone with her body. Serena worries that if the oracle truly predicts that eruption, they are running out of time. Dietrich sighs in frustration, declaring he's too busy to waste time debating with the founding anniversary just 2 days away. His words shock Serena, who realizes the date is far more significant than she knew. She stands frozen, processing the dire implications of the timeline. The blonde priest steers the conversation back on topic, asking about the white wings. Seizing the moment, Serena suddenly announces that she understands the oracle's meaning. The council erupts in disbelief, with one lord refusing to listen to a desperate fabrication. Serena stands her ground, remaining silent and resolute amidst the chaos. Dietrich coolly tells her to get on with it if she has something to say. She confidently repeats her claim, stating she understands what the oracle means. 2 council members immediately warn her to be careful, reminding her that a saint shouldn't interpret oracles rashly. Serena makes a stunning proclamation. The volcano on Iga Island will erupt, wiping out its inhabitants. The council dismisses her claim, pointing out the island's volcano has been dormant for centuries. 2 nobles accuse her of making it up, demanding to know why she singled out Iga Island. Serena explains that the white wings in the oracle refer to the winged goddess, Flicka. She connects the dots, stating Flicka is the guardian of Iga Island, where a giant statue of her stands. A council member concedes the possibility but remains skeptical, while another admits there's always a chance. Intrigued, Dietrich declares that her claim is worth investigating. 2 nobles vehemently protest his decision, asking if he truly believes her without proper discussion. A guard bursts in with urgent news. A major earthquake has just struck Iga Island. The council is thrown into chaos as they realize the earthquake could be a precursor to an eruption. Serena's eyes widen in horror, realizing the eruption isn't in 2 days, it's today. Her thoughts race with urgency. They have to hurry before the eruption begins at noon. King Ferdinand watches the unfolding chaos with a grave and thoughtful expression. Serena drops to her knees, desperately pleading with the king to believe her and send aid to the island. She waits for the council's judgment, alone and vulnerable before them. As Beatrice calls out to the king, he makes his decision, putting Dietrich in charge of the response. Dietrich rises from his seat, formally accepting the command. With sharp authority, Dietrich orders the navy to prepare for immediate departure. He informs the king he will personally lead the expedition to Iga Island, earning a nod of approval. Beatrice interrupts, arguing it is only logical for the saintess herself to go to the island to validate her own prophecy. Serena is shocked by the turn of events, thinking, "I'm going to Iga Island." The blonde priest smiles slyly, agreeing that having the saintess lead would indeed save face. As Dietrich warns him of the danger, Diana shouts that listening to a commoner will only lead to ruin and brand the saintess a villain. Serena looks on in wide-eyed shock. 2 officials discuss the matter, agreeing they can't be swayed by the saintess but must send aid to Iga Island. Diana smirks, slyly suggesting the saintess only hesitates because the mission is dangerous. Determined to avoid the villain route, Serena steps forward and declares that she will go. A divine light surrounds Serena as she stands resolute, her decision made. Diana gives a satisfied smirk while Dietrich and Volkart look on with grim expressions. The scene transitions to a bright, clear sky. A grand naval ship sails swiftly across the open sea. On deck, Serena marvels at the ship's incredible speed. A blonde-haired man informs her that this is a special ship, which explains its speed. He elaborates that it's the fastest ship in the army, powered by Prince Dietrich's magic stone. Serena is surprised to hear about a magic stone. The man explains that Dietrich places the stone in the ship's wheel before they set sail. A close-up shows a glowing purple gemstone embedded in the center of the ship's wheel, Serena quietly watches Dietrich from behind as he confidently steers the ship. Dietrich remains focused at the helm, his expression serious. Her two companions watch with admiration, while Serena observes with a thoughtful expression. Without looking back, Dietrich coldly tells her that her presence is useless. She argues that she can heal the injured upon arrival, but he simply tells her not to slow them down. Serena firms her resolve, knowing from the novel that the disaster is real and she cannot ignore it. An urgent energy fills the air as the group looks ahead. The ship approaches Aiga Island, where a massive volcano looms, threatening to destroy the entire population if it erupts. Serena acknowledges the grim reality that while they've come to help, they are also in grave danger. Dietrich turns to her, asking for confirmation that the eruption will occur after noon, to which she agrees. Realizing they're out of time, Dietrich begins issuing orders for immediate evacuation and rescue operations. He loudly commands the rescue teams to prepare to board anyone needing help. A crowd of islanders gathers on the docks, looking up at the arriving ship. As people are organized, some murmur in disbelief about the eruption, while others see the recent earthquake as a clear warning. Serena observes that many of the islanders don't believe the warnings. Someone calls for the saintess, snapping Serena back to the present. The blonde man asks her to heal a man whose leg was crushed by rubble and is still bleeding. After Serena asks about the injury, he confirms the leg is broken but has been bandaged. With a determined look, Serena agrees to help. She kneels and channels a brilliant blue holy energy into the man's wounded leg. The injured man stares down at his leg, feeling the effects of her power. Suddenly, he rips off the bandage in astonishment, exclaiming that the pain is gone and he's been cured. Serena smiles as the onlookers celebrate the miraculous healing. She kindly tells the healed man to rest well, as he thanks her profusely. Another man immediately calls for her help, and Serena readily agrees. She enters a large hold, filled with dozens of injured people lying on mats. The sheer number of wounded leaves her shocked and overwhelmed. Steeling herself, Serena resolves to be strong and heal the most seriously injured first. A promotional banner is displayed. The ship is docked at a port city, where a large, cracked statue of an angel stands. The winged statue shows signs of damage, its base fractured. The blonde-haired aide reports to Dietrich that the area's evacuation is complete. The aide anxiously notes that it's almost noon, and Dietrich looks toward the mountain. They both stare at the volcano as ominous purple smoke begins to rise, wondering if it's truly about to erupt. The rescue ship waits at the now deserted port under a tense sky. On deck, the rescue operation is in full swing as aides tend to the injured. Serena kneels, pouring her divine healing energy into a critically wounded man. She focuses intently, the blue light of her power intensifying around her. The healed man wakes up confused as an aide exclaims in relief. The aide thanks her profusely while Serena smiles, glad they arrived in time. Surveying the deck, she's overwhelmed by the endless line of injured people. She clutches her chest, feeling her divine power failing under the immense physical drain. A promotional banner is displayed. Despite her exhaustion, Serena answers the call for the saintess without hesitation. She immediately begins healing another man with a bandaged head. The man smiles, thanking her for the healing, but Serena remains worried. She advises him to rest, explaining that healing the wound doesn't replace lost blood. Overcome with a sense of helplessness, she collapses to her knees as a bell begins to toll. A sudden cry of, "It's midday!" jolts her as she realizes, with horror, that it's noon. The sky darkens ominously as she understands the eruption is about to begin. The blonde aide yells at the remaining people on the dock to get on board. A woman with pink hair pleads for them to wait, but an official insists they must leave now. Serena steps onto the dock to see what's happening as the group calls her name. The woman desperately begs for help, revealing her family is stranded at the lighthouse. Serena looks on with sympathy, her attention caught by the word family. An aide with a spyglass confirms seeing a lighthouse keeper as Serena asks for certainty. A wide view shows the port city and the distant, isolated lighthouse. The tall, white lighthouse stands alone against a cloudy sky. Serena peers through the spyglass, her eyes widening in shock. She sees a man and two small children huddled together on the lighthouse balcony. She confirms the sight. A father and his two young daughters are trapped. She anxiously asks her companion if they can possibly make it in time. The man explains the route is impossible. The bridge has collapsed, and treacherous reefs block the sea. He concludes they have no way to rescue them, and Serena whispers a defeated, "No." The desperate mother grabs Serena, asking if she's the new saintess. She falls to her knees, begging Serena to save her family, as Serena stands frozen. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently as someone shouts, "A tremor?" Dietrich appears on the gangplank, ordering the civilians to board the ship immediately. The blonde aide quietly begins to explain the situation to Dietrich. Two officials try to escort the distraught woman away as she screams for them to let go. The woman's heartbroken cries echo, questioning why the saintess won't help her family. Her words strike Serena, who can only watch in silent anguish as the woman is led away. Serena is lost in despair, feeling like an imposter who is only a saintess by name. She turns away, continuing to spiral in her thoughts. She questions the overwhelming pain and frustration of her powerlessness. Overcome with emotion, she stops as Dietrich silently observes her from behind. The blonde aide presents a map of the island, and Dietrich commands him to show it. An aide urges Serena back to the ship, but she angrily asks if they're abandoning the family. Dietrich cuts her off, unfurling the map and asking who said anything about abandoning them. His aides gasp in shock at his unexpected declaration. Dietrich finds something on the map as his aide exclaims, "A fishing boat!" Dietrich announces he'll go himself, being the only one who can navigate the reefs with the magic stone. Serena steps forward, insisting that if magic is required, then she will go too. Dietrich gives a subtle, determined look from the side. He turns to Serena, telling her to get some rest, leaving her momentarily stunned. Serena looks up in confusion. He promises to save the family at the lighthouse, then orders her to get off the island before him. Sudden flashback shows a dying man identified as Dietrich, the Tyrant's father, as Serena watches from a distance. Serena recalls that in the novel, the Tyrant's father was known as a ruthless man without blood or tears. Returning to the present, Serena's expression hardens with determination. The blonde aide calls out to Dietrich, warning that he's heading into danger, and his magic won't be enough to protect him if the eruption hits. Serena has a sudden realization, wondering why she hadn't considered something before. She remembers another power she possesses besides healing: space-time freezing. As Dietrich prepares a small boat, his aide begs him to reconsider, reminding him that magic doesn't make him immortal. Dietrich smirks, wryly noting his men's lack of faith as his aide shouts his name in desperation. He turns back and orders someone to return to the ship now. To his shock, he finds Serena has just scrambled onto his boat, and he demands to know why she's there. She grins cheekily, asking if he's surprised. As she explains, she jumped over from an anchored boat. Dietrich seethes with frustration. Now at sea, Dietrich angrily accuses her of trying to slow him down, but she firmly denies it. She insists that her dark magic will prove to be useful. With unwavering resolve, she declares that she is coming with him. An aide yells, "Departure!" as their small boat bravely sails into the ominous purple sky. The boat speeds away from the port, heading out into the open sea. From the main ship, the blonde aide watches them go, resolving that they must hurry as well. Annoyed, Dietrich warns Serena that if she insists on following, she must obey his orders exactly. She readily agrees, admitting she is slowing him down as an amateur at sea. Their small vessel sails on, driven by a shared mission to save everyone. The desperate family huddles on the lighthouse balcony, unaware that help is on the way. As the boat rocks violently, Dietrich instructs Serena to shift her weight to the outside. Looking nervous, Serena quickly complies. She realizes he's using the magic stone not just to steer, but also to create wind. Holding the glowing purple gem, she recognizes it from the ship's wheel and speculates it's a vessel for magic. The boat lurches violently, catching her by surprise. As she cries out about the waves, Dietrich warns her to stay alert, explaining the rough waters are caused by the reef. Through the rain and spray, they finally see the lighthouse. Fearing the boat will capsize, Serena prepares to use her space-time freeze magic on the waves. Dietrich sharply stops her, warning that if her power sinks the boat, they're both finished. As they navigate the treacherous rocks, he thinks to himself that he came with a plan, though he's no longer alone. Holding the glowing stone, he tells her she underestimates him. He moves to the bow of the boat and tells her to hold on tight. He declares that this is the fastest path through the reef. The purple magic stone in his hand pulses with immense power. A sudden, violent surge of speed throws Serena backward. The small boat tears through the water at an incredible velocity. Serena stares ahead, her expression a mixture of shock and awe. She watches in amazement as he uses the stone to pinpoint winds to the sails and instantly change direction. He skillfully pilots the boat through a narrow, treacherous channel between sharp rocks. Overwhelmed by his mastery, she thinks to herself that she could never control magic so skillfully. Her eyes are wide with admiration as she watches him work. With a confident look, Dietrich announces they are almost ashore. The boat approaches the base of the lighthouse as Serena thinks about her own limitations. They navigate toward a small wooden dock, nestled among the rocks. Dietrich expertly moors the boat as Serena realizes there was a port all along. He announces he's heading up to the lighthouse and orders her to stay behind. Serena quietly agrees to the plan. Dietrich is surprised, admitting he thought she'd want to follow him, but she reminds him of their deal. She thinks to herself that following him up the treacherous path would only slow him down. Dietrich tells her to save her strength, stating she will be useful later. Serena watches him go with a determined look. He turns and runs along the docks toward the island. Resolved, Serena affirms that she will do what she can, as it is her purpose. While climbing a rocky path, Dietrich curses, realizing the scaffolding is more unstable than he expected. He steels himself, knowing he must hurry. Elsewhere on the island, a purple-haired girl points out that the big ship has departed. Her father, holding a small child, wonders if his wife made it onto a boat amid the island's evacuation. Confused and scared, the young girl asks her father what is going on. The family is startled, as Prince Dietrich suddenly appears behind them. Dietrich announces he's there to help, and the father cries his name in relief. From the boat below, Serena anxiously wonders if they are still safe. She looks up toward the distant lighthouse perched atop the treacherous cliffs. Serena watches with hope as Dietrich emerges from a cave, carrying one child while the father follows with the other. Dietrich tells the little girl in his arms to hold on tight as her father follows close behind. Whoa! A sudden tremor rocks the cliffside as Dietrich yells for them to stay close to the wall. As the earthquake hits, Serena watches from the boat, her face filled with horror. The path begins to crumble and fall away beneath them. Dietrich clutches the child protectively as the ground completely gives way. Realizing they are falling, Dietrich thinks, "This is bad," just as a glowing blue butterfly appears. An incredible power erupts, freezing time itself and halting their fall in midair. Ethereal ribbons of blue light flow through the frozen scene. Serena unleashes her divine power from the boat, casting a massive sphere of light to save them. She desperately screams for them to hurry while she can still hold the spell. The father cries out in disbelief that they've stopped falling, while Dietrich warns they must move quickly before her power fades. Serena clutches her chest, racked with pain from overusing her magic. The family lands safely on the dock as Dietrich looks back toward Serena. The strain becomes too much, and Serena collapses forward. Dietrich catches her, asking if she's okay, as she faintly confirms everyone made it to safety. Dietrich gazes down at her with a look of deep concern. He holds her securely on the edge of the pier. He turns and shouts for everyone to get to the boat immediately. Dietrich carries the unconscious Serena aboard the small escape boat. He asks if she is okay, and she weakly apologizes before passing out. They rush across the docks as the island trembles violently around them. Dietrich looks back in terror, screaming that the eruption has started and they have to hurry. The small boat speeds away from the erupting volcano. Kia! The rescued family screams in terror as a massive wave hits their boat. A hand is shown, holding a large, brilliantly glowing purple crystal. Dietrich holds the mysterious crystal, a look of shock on his face as it pulses with energy. Aboard the boat, he holds the crystal as Serena lies beside him. The immense statue of the goddess Flicka shatters under the eruption's force. The volcano's crater glows with terrifying intensity. Iga Island is consumed by a cataclysmic volcanic eruption. The large naval ship continues its journey, still far from the island. From the ship's deck, the crew and the blonde priest watch the disaster in horror, praying for the prince and saintess's safety. The pyroclastic flow obliterates the coastline, destroying what remains of the goddess statue. Kaboom! Volcanic projectiles rain down around their small boat. On board, the rescued father hugs his two daughters, promising everything will be okay. Serena looks up in horror, shouting about the volcanic fumes. She realizes with dread that they'll be swallowed by the eruption before they can escape the reef. A huge volcanic bomb hurtles directly toward their boat. A surge of icy blue energy emanates from Serena. As glowing ice butterflies flutter around him, Dietrich realizes she's casting a space-time freeze. He watches in disbelief as she raises a hand, preparing to unleash her power. He urgently tells her to take it easy, warning that using more magic will endanger her life. Gasping for breath, she thinks that there is no other way. With fierce determination, she declares that she will take them all to safety. Dietrich looks on with a grim, concerned expression. He turns his gaze forward, looking shocked. Massive volcanic eruption begins, spewing lava into the sky. Someone shouts that it's a steam explosion. On the main ship, the evacuees watch in horror as the lava flow reaches the sea. Dietrich curses, realizing the situation has worsened. As Serena asks what's wrong, Dietrich shouts that they have to be faster. He explains that the steam from the lava hitting the seawater contains toxic gas. The small boat speeds through the churning, gas-filled waters. Serena looks back, yelling in shock at his revelation. She sees the toxic fumes blowing toward the main rescue ship. On the main ship, an aide sees the gas cloud heading their way. Serena worries that if they don't stop the lava flow, The gas will build and could send larger rocks flying. She clenches her fist with resolve. As she stumbles, Dietrich grabs her arm and tells her to stop. She struggles against his grip, continuing to channel her power. He shouts that she will die if she continues. She gives him a faint, determined smile. She unleashes her space-time freezing magic. Her power envelops the rescued family, keeping them safe. It also reaches the civilians watching from the main ship. Dietrich stares in shock as the spell takes effect. Her freezing magic washes over the island, the erupting volcano, and the surrounding sea. The rocky base of the lighthouse is encased in ice. A vast wave of ice energy expands from the island, freezing everything as someone realizes the whole island is frozen. Dietrich stares in utter disbelief at the frozen landscape. He shouts for her to get a grip as she collapses unconscious on the boat's floor. His world darkens as he screams her name, Serena. The rescued family rejoices, relieved that Dietrich and Serena are safe. The rescued father thanks Lord Dietrich for saving his family, but Dietrich tells him he should thank the saintess instead. The pink-haired woman asks if the saintess is okay, and Dietrich replies that she's sleeping, but not in danger. The mother gratefully tells her daughter that Serena saved them with her amazing magic. Dietrich sits in a chair, watching over Serena as she rests her head on his lap. Serena sleeps peacefully in a bed, surrounded by white flowers. The rescue ship sails toward a bustling port city. A crowd cheers as a man announces, "The rescue team is back." A man in a white and gold uniform smiles, watching their approach. The survivors disembark onto the crowded pier. A smiling blonde man in a white uniform welcomes the evacuees, offering them a hot meal and a change of clothes. The blonde aide reports to the dark-haired man in the white uniform. The dark-haired man reviews a list as a rescued girl watches him. He smiles warmly at the survivors, acknowledging their hardship. His kind smile reassures the weary evacuees. Suddenly, Dietrich appears, carrying an unconscious Serena down the gangplank. He holds her securely in his arms as he disembarks. The dark-haired man cries out, "Saintess," in concern, but Dietrich explains she's just asleep. Relieved, the dark-haired man expresses his gladness that Dietrich is also safe. Dietrich entrusts the remaining duties to him, declaring he'll take Serena home. He walks away with Serena, leaving the official to manage the pier. The dark-haired man watches them go with a contemplative look. Serena stirs, weakly asking what's happening. Dietrich firmly tells her to stay still. She overhears his thoughts about her recklessness, though to her, his voice is silent. He smiles, reassuring her that everyone, including the lighthouse family, is safe. Serena looks up at him, her expression softening with surprise. Dietrich carries her through the bustling port town with his retinue. From a balcony overlooking the sea, the blonde aide confirms their success. Dietrich tells Serena she can now break the spell, but she looks confused. She gasps in shock, realizing the space-time freeze on the island is still active. Dietrich warns that a magma eruption will occur when the freeze lifts, threatening a tsunami. She panics, but he explains they've taken precautions and she must stop consuming her power. He asks her to believe in him for a moment. Serena looks at him with a serious, determined gaze. Agreeing, she gathers her power, unleashing a wave of blue magical energy. Her magic surges across the sea, reaching the frozen island and dissipating the spell. Kaboom! The volcano erupts in a massive explosion of fire and ash. The dark-haired man and his aide watch the tremendous eruption in awe. The rescued civilians cheer, realizing the saintess predicted the eruption and saved them all. The scene shifts to a magnificent, sprawling castle. From a high balcony, an elderly nobleman expresses disbelief at her power to suppress the eruption. He covets her magic, believing it could help him control the continent. He decides one of the two princes must marry her to secure her power. The scene changes to a grand estate with a blue-domed roof. An elderly doctor checks her pulse as Dietrich watches from a nearby window. Dietrich recalls her collapsing after unleashing her magic, realizing she lost consciousness again. The doctor reports that her vitals are normal and she has no fever. He advises letting her rest to recover as the maids offer to take over. Dietrich dismisses the maids, insisting he will watch over her tonight. Surprised but compliant, the head maid agrees to his request. Night falls over the quiet, elegant estate. Dietrich sits vigilantly by Serena's bedside, his arms crossed. As she sleeps, glowing blue snowflakes begin to materialize around her. The blessing of the sacred beast manifests as snowflakes and ice butterflies. Noticing the magical sea blossoms, Dietrich fetches a glass of water. He carefully collects one of the glowing snowflakes in the glass. As Serena stirs in her sleep, he reaches toward her, wondering if she's having a nightmare. He gently places his hand on her forehead to soothe her. Serena awakens with a worried expression. Her concern melts into a gentle, hopeful smile. Dietrich gently places his hand on her forehead as she sleeps. A dark-haired man in a white uniform arrives with a bouquet of red roses. Holding the flowers, he waits silently before the door. A promotional page for the creative team is displayed. A gloved hand gently brushes Serena's hair as she sleeps peacefully. Dietrich turns from the bedside, angrily asking what the intruder is doing here. The dark-haired visitor states he is there to see the saintess. Dietrich stands before the man, informing him that Serena is still asleep. He forcefully takes the bouquet of flowers from the visitor. Dietrich offers to give her the flowers, but the man insists on waiting to speak with her. Dietrich coldly dismisses the man's attempt to give Serena the flowers. The dark-haired man now stands beside Serena's bed, watching her sleep. Serena continues to rest, unaware of the visitor. Dietrich tells the man to come back another day, but he insists his business is urgent. He reveals his plan to ask her to dance at an upcoming feast. The dark-haired man further declares his intention to formally propose to her. Dietrich is utterly stunned by the sudden announcement. The man explains he must marry her so she can continue serving the country after her 5-year term expires. Dietrich angrily questions the government's dependence on a saintess. The man retorts that it's always been this way, and accuses Dietrich of being the one obsessed with his mother. The visitor reminds Dietrich of his status as a prince of Aleza. TSK. Dietrich scoffs, refusing to let Serena be dragged into this, and declaring he will escort her to the celebration instead. The prince tells him to keep his feelings out of it, but Dietrich erupts with power, vowing not to let her be used as a tool. The prince calmly asks Dietrich why he's so worked up, questioning if he has a personal interest in the saintess. Dietrich remains silent, his expression guarded. With a smirk, Dietrich challenges him, asking what if he does have an interest. Knock. A sudden knock interrupts their tense standoff. A voice from outside apologizes for the intrusion, informing Prince Dietrich that one of his men has an urgent matter. Dietrich agrees to come, giving the other prince a final glance. As he leaves, Dietrich dismissively tells the other man to go home. The dark-haired prince glares, angered by Dietrich's command. A maid reports that Volkart has brought flowers, and she offers to find a vase. Prince Volkart stands vigil at Serena's bedside, his arms crossed. He notes that the room once belonged to Dietrich's mother. He reflects that he has not seen Dietrich so agitated in years. Volkart watches over the peacefully sleeping Serena. In the quiet room, Serena sleeps soundly. She begins to stir, catching Volkart by surprise. As her eyes open, he gently addresses her as, "My lady." He softly asks if she heard his voice. Serena's eyes widen in surprise as she awakens. She recognizes him as Prince Volkart, who urges her to take it easy. Smiling weakly, she reassures him that she is just a little tired. Sitting up, she realizes the pain she felt before is completely gone. Whoa! Her eyes light up in surprise at the sight of the flowers. Holding the beautiful bouquet, she happily accepts his gift. Volkart explains that he brought the flowers, hoping to comfort her when she awoke. She graciously thanks him, thinking he isn't a bad person after all. She recalls Volkart is destined to be king and to execute her. Holding the roses, she continues her private thoughts. She feels instinctively that his kind smile is fake. Prince Volkart maintains his seemingly gentle expression. She suddenly realizes the National Day Festival is only 2 days away. He asks if she would like to attend the upcoming celebration. He clarifies his invitation, asking her to be his personal partner. She is utterly floored by his unexpected request. The prince stands by her bedside, awaiting her answer. She hesitates, unsure how to respond to his offer. He gently asks if she already has a partner. He adds that everyone is eager to see the renowned saintess. She mentally declines, worrying about the political rumor that marrying the saintess makes one king. She decides it's best to avoid any action that could be misunderstood. He presses on, explaining that attending with a partner is customary. His confident smile suggests he expects her to agree. The day of the grand celebration arrives at the royal palace. The scene is set at the bustling castle courtyard. From a high balcony, the king and an aide survey the crowd. The king raises his hand, greeting the cheering citizens below. Inside, Serena and other nobles wait to be presented. Having accepted the invitation, she stands with a blonde noble who notes her somber mood. She flatly refuses the blonde noble's attempt to become her partner. He condescendingly suggests she lacks the prestige for such events. He notes that only someone comparable to Prince Volkart would be a suitable partner. His mention of Prince Dietrich's name makes her gasp in shock. The blonde noble smirks, seemingly enjoying her discomfort. She panics, wondering how to navigate the situation. On the balcony, the king continues speaking with his dark-haired aide. When asked, She tells the blonde noble that Prince Dietrich has left the capital. The noble seems surprised and questions what she means. The king's aide summons her forward for the official introduction. The blonde noble encourages her to show her face with pride for saving the island. She looks down, feeling hesitant and unworthy of the praise. She inwardly rejects the title of savior, believing it's not true. She feels she couldn't use her power properly or do anything on her own. The dark-haired aide now stands beside Serena on the balcony. The king begins his formal introduction to the waiting crowd. He grandly announces her name, Serena Bernstein. The crowd below erupts into a thunderous roar of approval. The people cheer loudly, calling out for Lady Serena and the saintess. Their chants praise both the saintess and the kingdom of Aleza. While smiling for the crowd, she wishes Dietrich were here, feeling the cheers belong to him. She feels like a fraud, admitting she's only thinking of her own safety. Elsewhere in the palace, maids gossip that Serena and Prince Volkart look good together. The maids excitedly share the rumors spreading about the saintess. A stern headmaid appears, ordering the gossiping trio back to work. The blonde headmaid watches them go with a serious expression. Peeking from a corner, a maid whispers about the presence of a Lady Diana. As maids help Serena with her gown, a voice asks how she is feeling. Serena stands elegantly in a beautiful teal and white gown. Forcing a smile, she wonders how she is supposed to feel. She recalls Prince Volkart cheerfully promising to prepare her outfit and pick her up. With a dark expression, she realizes she had no room to refuse his offer. Serena sighs in resignation as a concerned maid watches her. A maid gently gets her attention, calling her Lady Serena. The maid hesitantly asks if she is truly going with Prince Volkart. Serena admits that dancing with the prince is too much for her. She explains that people said the only other suitable partner would be Prince Dietrich. Serena is shocked to learn that Dietrich rushed to a tsunami-damaged facility the night she returned. The dark-haired maid elaborates that the damage was severe, and he left to lead the recovery efforts. Another maid adds that he had stayed by Serena's side out of worry, stunning her. Confused, she wonders if it wasn't Prince Volkart who watched over her. The maid clarifies that Prince Dietrich was the one who brought the physician for her. She further explains that Prince Volkart only arrived as Prince Dietrich was leaving. Understanding dawns on Serena as she processes the revelation. She wonders why Dietrich would do so much for her after she felt so helpless. She pictures Dietrich's back, a gentle smile on his face. The blonde headmaid announces that a message from Prince Dietrich has arrived. Serena listens intently as the message is relayed to her. The other maids celebrate excitedly, believing the message confirms his feelings. Serena panics, thinking Dietrich never mentioned a banquet and would never invite her. The headmaid gravely advises Lady Serena to think carefully about her decision. She warns that attending with Prince Volkart will lead everyone to assume they are engaged. Stunned, Serena realizes she was prepared for partnership rumors, but not an engagement. Just then, a maid announces that Prince Volkart has arrived. Serena turns in surprise as he approaches. Prince Volkart, dressed in formal attire, asks if the saintess is ready. Serena considers that marrying someone other than Dietrich might help her avoid her fated death. She imagines being held by Volkart, then recoils in horror, declaring it impossible. The scene shifts to the grand royal palace at night. An attendant formally announces the arrival of Saintess Serena. Serena enters the magnificent hall on the arm of Prince Volkart. Noblewomen whisper amongst themselves, confirming the rumor about the saintess is true. They gossip that the king intends to marry the saintess to one of the princes. The rumor solidifies. Prince Volkart and the saintess are engaged. Serena and Volkart stand together, presenting a united front. Serena remains silent, her expression unreadable. They proceed through the lavish and crowded ballroom. In awe, Serena recognizes the location as the Azure Wave Palace. Other elegantly dressed couples walk through the grand hall. Serena grimaces, thinking she never expected to be at the palace with Volkart. An aide presents the saintess to the king, who greets Volkart. The king tells Serena she is a suitable partner for the prince. He adds that everyone is eager for Volkart to introduce her. Serena hesitates, unsure how to respond to the king. A noblewoman with dark purple hair steps forward to address His Majesty. As she speaks, an orchestra begins to play elegant music. A gloved hand is extended towards Serena as a voice calls her name. Prince Volkart smiles and formally asks her for a dance. She hesitates, internally panicking over what it means to dance with Volkart. She stammers, claiming that she is not a very good dancer. He smiles gently, reassuring her that he will lead. Serena stands frozen, her expression one of pure shock. Suddenly, the crowd parts for a dramatic new arrival. The party guests murmur in surprise, shocked by the unexpected entrance. Both Volkart and Serena are startled by the figure who has just appeared. Serena's eyes widen in disbelief, as she recognizes the newcomer. A silver-haired man in a handsome green and black formal suit stands before her. Her mind screams his name in shock. Dietrich. The noblewomen gossip in hushed tones, identifying Prince Dietrich and noting his solitary arrival. Dietrich addresses her directly, asking if she received his message. Before she can answer, he swiftly grabs her arm, telling her to wait. Crying out his name in surprise, she is pulled away from Prince Volkart. Dietrich firmly takes her hand, cutting in without hesitation. He clasps her gloved hand securely in his own. Looking down at her intently, he asks her to dance the first song with him. Serena is utterly stunned, unable to comprehend his sudden demand. He waits for her response, his gaze unwavering. Without waiting for an answer, he sweeps her onto the dance floor. With a musical flourish, their dance begins. Dietrich leads her in a graceful waltz across the ballroom floor. They spin away, leaving the shocked crowd behind them. Stunned noblewomen whisper furiously, wondering if Dietrich stole the saintess and is her true fiancé. Another guest remarks that the two of them look like they suit each other. From the side, Prince Volkart watches with a grimly serious expression. On a balcony above, the king and a blonde noble observe the unfolding drama. The two continue their elegant dance, the center of everyone's attention. Serena stares up at him, still reeling from the turn of events. Dietrich keeps his focus on her as he leads the dance. She remains silent, caught in the unexpected moment with him. A thought flashes through her mind. She doesn't want to marry Volkart. She muses that marrying Volkart would separate her from Dietrich, allowing her to avoid her fate of being executed as the mother of the story's final boss. Her thoughts continue, concluding that if the last boss, Xavier, is never born, Alessa's destruction can be prevented. The bleak image of a war-torn land fades from her mind. Coming back to the present, she asks Dietrich why he would ask her to dance now. She scolds him, saying his actions are against etiquette and demanding to know what he was thinking. He replies that it's obvious he doesn't want his brother. He explains that if she had danced with Volkart, everyone would have assumed she was his fiancée. Serena is taken aback, realizing the truth in his words. He looks her straight in the eye and declares, "I don't want you to marry Volkart." She turns her head, a complex expression on her face. The music swells as their dance reaches its finale. As the crowd applauds, they hold their final pose. Dietrich tells her not to misunderstand, insisting that he isn't trying to woo her, which visibly annoys Serena. She blushes, internally questioning why he would stop her from marrying Volkart if he has no romantic interest. Prince Volkart smoothly interrupts, asking for the next dance. He takes her hand and says, "Let's go," leading a hesitant Serena away as Dietrich watches. The noblewomen erupt in excited whispers, speculating that the princes are fighting over the saintess and wondering who she will choose. Nobles gossip that Prince Dietrich suits her better. A rumor spreads that the saintess is playing with both princes. Serena is stunned to see Diana with the prince. Purple-haired lady glares with fury. The accusation rings out. The saintess is a flirt. She reels in shock at the sight of Diana. A public confrontation begins on the ballroom floor. A silver-haired man silently watches the drama unfold. The purple-haired lady claims she saw the saintess meeting with the priest. Diana feigns shock, while the blonde priest seems amused. The entire ballroom watches with rapt attention. Volkart explains they meet for their daily clerical duties. The lady escalates, claiming they were kissing in the shadows. The priest listens to the accusation, his expression unreadable. Diana furiously denies the outrageous accusation. The silver-haired man approaches, warning her to be careful. He simply tells her to look around. Standing between the two men, Diana surveys the watching crowd. The crowd whispers amongst themselves, believing the rumors. Serena realizes Diana is using her charm magic to manipulate everyone. The king suddenly appears, demanding to know the truth. The priest is startled by His Majesty's intervention. Serena worries that the king has also been charmed. She realizes Diana is orchestrating this to ruin her reputation. Serena clenches her fist, her resolve hardening. She confronts Diana, telling her to think carefully. She admits meeting the priest, but for matters of national importance, the priest seems skeptical of her noble explanation. Serena declares the news must be announced for Diana's sake. She stands before them, calm and composed. Stumbling suddenly, Serena is caught by Volkart. The silver-haired man looks on in surprise. Diana and her companion are left utterly speechless. The blonde priest turns to the king and apologizes. He explains that the existence of a saintess is vital. Onlookers question what the saintess is possibly thinking. The king addresses Diana, asking about the other saintess candidate. Serena reveals that the candidate is present in the hall. A woman in purple protests loudly, telling them to wait. A divine light suddenly envelops a stunned Diana. The crowd murmurs, questioning how Lady Diana could be a candidate now. Serena insists they must inform the seemingly unaware Diana. Diana feigns compassion, confused by Serena's strange behavior. Her aunt shouts that it's impossible. Diana already took the test. Serena calmly and firmly refutes her, saying no. She stands her ground against Diana and her aunt. They are both stunned into silence by her confidence. The king decides to reveal the truth to convince everyone. The priest agrees, calling for the sacred saintess's manual. The founding myth is told of a girl guided to a magical pearl. A voice commands the consumption of a pearl, granting a silver-haired woman a mysterious power. This power enabled her to found the kingdom of Aleza, becoming the first great saintess. Since then, a sacred shell is used in a temple ceremony to test 7-year-old girls for saintess aptitude. In a grand hall, a blonde priest asks a dark-haired girl named Lady Diana to present her hand for the ceremony. Lady Diana looks shocked as she approaches the box containing the sacred shell. A woman in a purple dress suddenly grabs Diana's wrist, yelling for her to stop and insisting she's already been tested. Serena watches, realizing the woman Beatrice is trying to hide Diana's power and wondering why. Diana defiantly pulls her arm free from her aunt, declaring she won't keep her power a secret any longer. She reaches her hand toward the glowing shell inside the ornate box. As her hand nears, the sacred shell begins to glow and open. The shell fully opens to reveal a single, perfect pearl, radiating a holy light. I did it, Diana exclaims with delight, while Beatrice covers her mouth in horror. An older nobleman confirms that Lady Diana possesses the power of the saintess. Prince Dietrich and Prince Volkart watch in stunned silence as the revelation sinks in. The blonde priest smiles, instructing Lady Diana to consume the saintess of proof. Diana holds the glowing pearl, realizing that eating it will make her a saintess. Dietrich is horrified, recognizing the pearl as the saintess's proof and yelling for Diana to stop. Ignoring the warning, Diana swallows the glowing pearl in one gulp. Dietrich and Beatrice watch in dismay as Diana clutches her throat, a dark energy rising. Surrounded by thorny purple roses, Diana triumphantly tells her aunt she is now a saintess too. A close-up shows the glowing pearl being swallowed. Diana looks upward, a blissful and determined smile on her face. Bathed in a radiant purple aura, she celebrates becoming a saintess, certain that Volk will now make her queen. She turns to her horrified aunt, cheerfully repeating that she'll be a saintess. Beatrice looks on in utter despair, whispering her niece's name in disbelief. Serena asks Diana if she is truly willing to become a saintess candidate, to which Diana confidently agrees. Diana smirks, thinking that if she proves more powerful, she can replace Serena as the saintess. Serena calmly informs Diana that she must now leave the Flower Palace for the candidate's dormitory. Confused, Diana questions this, as Serena explains all candidates begin their education there at age 7. Serena pointedly asks if Diana will follow the established tradition. Diana glares, realizing this woman is trying to kick her out of the palace. She turns to the priest, arguing that, as royalty, she shouldn't have to go to the dormitory. The priest cryptically replies that there is no precedent for her situation. He smiles slyly, reminding Diana she should be grateful to the saintess for discovering her power. The priest adds that etiquette is strictly observed, leaving Diana looking flustered. Vowing to become queen and overthrow Serena, Diana grits her teeth and offers a reluctant thank you. Diana turns to face her rival, addressing her directly as saintess. Serena thinks that Diana has saintess qualities, resolving to never become an enemy of the priest who seems to favor her. Serena believes she has successfully checked Diana's ambition and hopes she will calm down. Nearby nobles clarify that Diana is only 16 and cannot replace Serena until her term ends at 22. The narration concludes that Diana must replace Serena during her term to become the saintess. Serena feels a glimmer of hope, realizing that if Diana succeeds, she can escape her duties, marriage, and her fated death. As other ladies congratulate a smiling Diana, Beatrice looks on with a pained expression. Dietrich watches with concern as a distraught Beatrice whispers Diana's name in anguish. Dietrich watches Diana, wondering if she truly understands what it means to be a saintess. Beatrice breaks down in tears, lamenting that Diana doesn't understand anything and only wants to marry Volkart. Her thoughts reveal her terror. She doesn't want Diana to suffer the same fate as previous saintesses. The scene shifts to a vast, imposing castle under a starry night sky. Inside a palace corridor, guards confirm that the person they are looking for is not there. Beatrice arrives, asking about the commotion, and a guard reports that Prince Dietrich has disappeared from his room. A flashback begins on the day of the funeral for Dietrich's mother, Alicia. Alicia, a former saintess, lies in state, honored with a grand funeral. A younger Beatrice frantically calls out for Dietrich, telling him to come out. Pitying the 10-year-old boy, she finds young Dietrich huddled alone on a stone staircase. She tells the distraught Dietrich that everyone was worried, then freezes, seeing what he's looking at. Her blue eye widens in shock, reflecting a horrifying scene. In a dark room, Ferdinand holds a lantern over Alicia's body as physicians attend to her. The narration identifies Ferdinand as the interim king, who is present with physicians. They stand over the body of Alicia, who was supposed to have been buried. As the physicians work, Alicia's hand falls limply from the table. Ferdinand watches intently, a strange look of anticipation on his face. Hiding nearby, young Dietrich and Beatrice watch the scene in absolute horror. A gloved hand pulls a large, glowing purple magic stone from Alicia's chest. Ferdinand holds the extracted magic stone, admiring its beauty with a sinister smile. As Beatrice realizes the horrifying truth, young Dietrich suddenly smashes through a wooden door. Tears streaming down his face, Dietrich screams for them to stay away from his mother. He snatches the magic stone and flees as Ferdinand sternly calls out to Beatrice. Ferdinand commands Beatrice to retrieve the stone from Dietrich at once. Beatrice looks back at her king, stunned by his command. She realizes with horror that Ferdinand has been sacrificing saintesses for their magic stones all along. The grim, bloody truth of the past settles in. Back in the present, Ferdinand confronts Beatrice, startling her. He furiously demands to know if she deliberately hid Diana's power from him. As Beatrice stammers, she thinks about her long struggle to protect Diana from this unstoppable man. Ferdinand's inner monologue furiously blames the current saintess for this complication. He seethes, thinking this wouldn't have happened if Serena hadn't meddled. Prince Volkart interrupts the tense atmosphere, addressing Lady Serena. He notes that her attempt to control Diana has instead created a direct competitor. Serena calmly states she will accept being relieved of her duties for the kingdom's sake. Volkart falls into a thoughtful silence, studying her reaction. Confused by his lack of response, Serena quietly questions him. He apologizes, stating it's unthinkable to dismiss such a renowned great saintess, which surprises her. Serena is horrified, realizing she won't be dismissed, even if Diana becomes a saintess. She looks away in despair as Volkart continues to observe her. Volkart maintains a serious and unreadable expression. Serena's attention is drawn to the approaching Prince Dietrich. Dietrich suddenly grabs her arm, insisting they need to talk. Serena is completely baffled by his abrupt action. He pulls her away, leading her through the stunned party guests. She protests as he determinedly pulls her from the room. Volkart watches them go with a stern, displeased look. His expression remains grim as he silently watches them disappear. As Dietrich leads her onto a moonlit palace veranda, Serena asks where they are going. They walk briskly down the grand, empty corridor. Serena confronts him, demanding to know how he knew about Diana being a candidate. He turns the question on her, asking if she'll report other candidates besides Diana. Serena denies knowing others, asking if it's not for Alez's sake, but Dietrich looks unconvinced. He cryptically asks if it's worth it, even if becoming a saintess leads to a cruel end. Startled, she demands to know what he is talking about. She wonders if he's saying that becoming a saintess is a death route. Prince Dietrich warns her that if she continues, she won't meet a good end. Serena somberly thinks to herself that a tragic end is already a given. She confronts Dietrich, demanding to know what he means by saintesses meeting cruel ends. He takes her glowing hand, telling her to come and meet someone. As Dietrich leads her away, a confused Serena pleads with him to explain. She worries about what he could possibly know, regretting her involvement with him. The scene transitions to a lively town square during a night festival. The bustling market is filled with vendors and townspeople. Now in cloaks, Dietrich leads Serena down a stone alleyway. They stop in a narrow passage before a tall, plain building. Serena looks up at a sign with a medical cross, questioning if it's a clinic. Peeking inside, she nervously asks why they are there. Dietrich calls out for someone named Seth, saying there's a woman he wants him to meet. A blonde young man named Seth, identified as a healer, dismissively tells Dietrich to introduce his lover elsewhere. Dietrich introduces Serena as the new saintess, and Seth asks if she is the person he was meant to meet. Dietrich explains that the king has taken an interest in her, and Seth listens intently. Seth acknowledges that this was expected, and asks for the point. The revelation that Serena is Celestia's daughter leaves Seth completely shocked. Serena hears the name and wonders who Celestia is. Seth invites them inside, but warns that he has no tea to offer. The scene shifts to the interior of a cozy room with a crackling fireplace. As they sit, Dietrich apologizes for the untidy state of the room. Serena turns to Seth and asks if he works at the clinic. Seth confirms that he is a healer. Dietrich reveals that Seth is actually a former saintess, shocking Serena. Serena internally notes Seth's handsome, masculine appearance and Seth explains his disguises for personal reasons. Seth expresses surprise that Celestia's daughter became a saintess and asks if her mother told her anything. As Serena hesitates, Dietrich explains that her mother died when she was too young to remember. Serena processes the stunning revelation that her mother, Celestia, was also a former saintess. Seth explains that Serena's mother, Celestia, helped him greatly during his time as a candidate. He confesses that without her mother's help, he would not be alive today. Serena asks for an explanation, and Seth reveals the grim truth. All saintesses who completed their term died under suspicious circumstances. The word suspicious deaths echo in Serena's mind, filling her with horror. Seth elaborates on rumors that previous saintesses had marks on their chests, as if something had been extracted. A view of his torso shows it is tightly wrapped in bandages. Serena is aghast, seeing a large scar and wondering what could have been taken from him. Seth explains that when a saintess touches the oracle manual, a pearl-colored shell appears, which becomes the core for creating something. That something, he reveals, is magic stones. Serena reacts with shock, wondering if that is what Prince Dietrich possesses. Dietrich presents a large, glowing purple crystal, explaining it is his mother Alicia's magic stone. He grimly reveals the king himself extracted it the night of his mother's funeral. Horrified, Serena questions if His Majesty really extracted it from her body. Dietrich confirms this, stating that the king cruelly collects magic stones from saintesses. He explains that the 5-year term allows the magic stone to mature, a gift from the holy beast that the king steals to grant others the saintess's power. The horrifying realization dawns on Serena, as she wonders what will happen when a magic stone is extracted from her. Dietrich states her time-freeze dark magic would become a stone the king covets, a power that could destroy the kingdom. Surrounded by dark, thorny energy, Serena realizes the king wants such dangerous magic stones. Seth reveals that Celestia, told of the truth by Alicia, named him her successor and spoke of a magic stone for a new heart, without which extraction is impossible. Dietrich crosses his arms, looking sternly ahead. Serena panics, realizing her plan for a comfortable life is shattered, and that she is now a target. Turning to Dietrich, she mistakenly addresses him as Seth, asking in shock how he survived. Dietrich explains that Seth quit being a saintess before the magic stone matured, allowing him to survive with minimal damage. Utterly bewildered, Serena questions if it is truly that easy to just quit being a saintess. Knowing that a saintess loses her position upon losing her abilities, she desperately asks how he managed it. Dietrich bluntly reveals the shocking method. Shortly after becoming a saintess, he slept with a man and became pregnant. Serena's mind short-circuits, as she can only let out a disbelieving, "What?" Still reeling from the revelation, Serena stammers, as she asks again how he lost his powers. Dietrich repeats the incredible claim that he got pregnant right after arriving as a saint. Serena is left speechless by his statement, only able to utter a questioning, "Huh?" The absurdity of the situation hits her as she realizes this was his grand escape plan. She recalls hearing from priests that most saints lose their divine power after conceiving a child. Serena stands awkwardly between Dietrich and a quiet, silver-haired man. The silver-haired man speaks up, asking Dietrich why he isn't helping her, and Dietrich snaps at him, calling him Seth. Dietrich clarifies to a stunned Serena that he himself never had a child. He admits he only claimed to have slept with a man, revealing that he faked the pregnancy to escape. Dietrich explains that the chief physician had warned his mother, Alicia, about Ferdinand's evil deeds. The narration reveals Aleza's dark secret, the tradition of extracting magic stones from saints. The guilt-ridden physician helped Dietrich fake the pregnancy, which led to his public trial and removal from sainthood. Though removed from his post, he was not spared the horrifying operation to extract the witch stone. Dietrich recounts that his frequent oracles indicated his magic stone was still growing, a fact that did not escape Ferdinand. He explains that he was pronounced dead during the operation, allowing him to escape with the help of the surgeon and Celestia's guidance. In a tender memory, he recalls being embraced by a woman as he decided to abandon his old life and live as Seth. Serena stares, absorbing the weight of his words as he speaks of living as someone else. Dietrich's expression turns grim as he concludes that he can never truly escape from Ferdinand. A dark, unsettling texture fills the scene, reflecting the gravity of his story. Seth gently tells Serena that she must have been nervous leaving her family and changing her environment. Serena remembers her past, feeling as though she was thrown into another world completely alone. Dietrich tells her that a woman named Celestia wanted him to live and be happy. A memory surfaces of an older woman in blue comforting a kneeling, younger version of Serena. He implores her to make her own choice for Celestia's sake. The scene transitions to a lively town festival under a starry sky. Villagers celebrate, cheering and raising their mugs in the brightly lit town square. A couple twirls on a stage as the crowd claps along to the festive music. Disguised in dark cloaks, Seth and Serena move unnoticed through the bustling festival. As she walks, Serena reflects on her singular goal: to avoid her death and complete her term peacefully. She had believed she could simply find a replacement and quit her role as Saint midway. With tears in her eyes, she realizes how naive she had been to think it would be so easy. A horrifying thought grips her. She cannot believe the king himself is after her magic stone. Trapped in a mental prison of thorns, she desperately wonders how to escape with no one to help her. Dietrich suddenly appears, taking her arm and warning her that she'll get lost in the crowd. Looking up at the man who has just revealed his past, she thinks his name. She opens her mouth to speak, her expression a mix of shock and confusion. A jolt runs through her as Dietrich firmly takes her hand in his. He begins to lead her away as she calls out in protest. Serena's mind races, wondering if Dietrich's attempts to oust her were actually meant to protect her. Looking forward into the night, Dietrich makes a solemn promise. If she wishes to escape, he will let her go. Serena's eyes widen in utter astonishment at his unexpected offer. At the festival, a child held by his father excitedly points to the sky. Boom! Colorful fireworks burst across the night sky, delighting the celebrating crowd. As fireworks light up the sky with cheers of "Glory to Eleza," Dietrich asks Serena what she wants to do. Dietrich explains that the current chief medical officer is loyal to the king, so faking a pregnancy won't work this time, but the prince's intervention could still secure her release. Serena stares up at him, rendered completely speechless by the possibilities. Standing before Dietrich, she can only stammer, unable to form a complete thought. She desperately wonders if she can truly quit her sainthood and run away. Serena recalls feeling alone in another world, a thought mirrored by an image of a young Dietrich feeling insecure despite getting what he wanted. She feels utterly alone in this world, realizing that even if she escaped, she would have nowhere to go back to. A heavy sense of isolation settles in as she contemplates her place in this world. Dietrich gently tells her that if she has nowhere to go, he will find a town where she can live safely and even provide her with money. With a determined gaze, he declares his true wish: to free the saints from their cruel destiny. He asks if she is truly prepared to continue, urging her to leave the court and live her life freely. Her lace-gloved hands clasp tightly in a moment of heavy contemplation. Serena speaks, revealing that Dietrich's mother, Alicia, was also a saint blessed by a holy beast, and the Palace of Flowers was her room. Dietrich explains that the king monitored his mother's every move, restricting her because she could grow rare tidal flowers. He recounts that the king's surveillance continued relentlessly even after Alicia lost her powers and married. Dietrich gives her a grave warning. If the king learns of her tidal flowers, she will be imprisoned in the palace, a fate he cannot bear for her to share with his mother. Serena looks up, her bright blue eyes wide with understanding and shock. He extends his hand with a solemn expression, offering her a way out. Take my hand, Serena. She stares at his outstretched hand, a silent question in her eyes. She thinks that if she takes his hand, she might finally be able to escape. But as thorns seem to materialize around her, she hesitates, contemplating the cost of her freedom. Serena realizes that her escape would burden Dietrich and that another saint would simply take her place, forcing him to repeat this struggle all over again. The thought of him fighting this battle all alone gives her pause. Having made a new resolve, Serena tells him it's not time yet and declares she will remain at court to help him free the saints from their fate. Dietrich looks down at her, stunned by her decision to stay at court. He asks if she's serious, and she confirms, explaining that if she runs away, the same tragic cycle will simply repeat. Looking at her with newfound respect, Dietrich agrees that they have to make a change. Serena stands firm, declaring that as long as she remains a saint, there will be no more victims. Dietrich turns to leave, telling her it's time to go home as she follows behind him. As they walk, he quietly says her name, his thoughts hidden under his hood. He leaves her with a final piece of advice for the night. Think about it. The scene transitions to a grand, moonlit palace under a starry sky. Thump. Serena returns to her room, the sound echoing in the quiet space. Alone now, she reflects on the evening, realizing that Dietrich was angry. She admits to herself that her decision was rash, but she couldn't stand by and let things continue as they were. The scene shifts to a large crowd of people gathered on a windy cliff overlooking the sea. People in the crowd murmur, questioning if this is the great saint ceremony, but are shocked to learn it is not. A woman with dark hair, Diana, stands alone on the cliff's edge, calmly admiring the bay. From below, the crowd watches Diana standing on the sacred saint stand. A blonde priest presents Diana to Serena, introducing her as the Holy Lady. The priest announces that Lady Diana will call the sacred beast with the king's blessing, leaving Serena stunned and questioning if Diana will accept an oracle. Serena internally panics, wondering if it's even safe for a mere candidate to summon a sacred beast at this stage. A wide view shows the nobles, including Dietrich and Serena, watching the ceremony unfold. Dietrich stands among the nobles, his expression unreadable as he watches the scene. Serena looks on with worry, knowing that Dietrich would never want Diana to bear the cruel destiny of a saint. One of the nobles asks the priest why a non-saint is on the holy platform, but the priest simply states it's the king's wish and not their place to interfere. Stepping forward from the crowd, Dietrich calls out Diana's name. He argues that even with the king's permission, allowing her on the platform is a grave disrespect to their sacred protocols. Diana rejects Dietrich's warning, declaring that as the future great saint, protocols mean nothing to her. Serena worries about Diana's recklessness, as Dietrich shouts that drinking the blood isn't enough to grant immediate power. The blonde priest explains to a stunned Serena that saints undergo a decade of training after being discovered at a young age. As the group watches from below, the priest tells Diana on the cliff that he's sure she understands the gravity of the situation. The priest gives Diana a confident smile, telling her it's okay to try. Diana stands alone on the windy cliff's edge, gazing out at the vast ocean. Surrounded by an ominous aura and red flowers, Diana vows to prove she's the greatest saint they'll ever meet. An older blonde man asks a dark-haired noble if Diana knows the sacred song required for the summoning. The dark-haired man thinks about the consequences for Serena if Diana successfully demonstrates her power. As Diana kneels in prayer and a magical circle glows, the older man assures a concerned noble that he's letting her try because she was so confident. Dietrich watches the ceremony unfold, his face a mask of silent disapproval. A dark energy swirls as a thought questions why the holy beast has not appeared yet. Diana panics, thinking the song should be working, while the priest explains to Serena and Dietrich that calling Lady Frida can take days. The older blonde man turns and commands Serena to call the holy beast herself. Stunned by the sudden order, Serena points to herself in disbelief. Serena reluctantly agrees, glancing worriedly at Dietrich. Serena walks onto the sacred platform, approaching the spot where Diana stands. Serena moves past a dejected and humiliated Diana, who lowers her head. Diana glares, her face twisted in a silent snarl of fury and frustration. Serena kneels at the cliff's edge, preparing to begin the summoning ritual. She wonders what would happen if she successfully summoned Frida right then and there. Stealing her resolve, she tells herself to focus and block out all other thoughts. Kneeling before the sea, Serena begins to sing as musical notes fill the air. Dietrich and the dark-haired noble watch her with concerned expressions. A magical song drifts across the sky. A brilliant beam of light descends from the heavens, striking the ocean's surface. A villager spots the arrival and shouts out Lady Frida's name in excitement. A massive, white, whale-like creature bursts from the water in a glorious splash. The older blonde man watches the spectacle, simply uttering, "Oh." Serena looks up with wide-eyed wonder, thinking Frida's name. She feels herself being pulled into a familiar aquatic trance, just like the last time. Immersed in the vision, Serena feels a sudden, intense warmth blooming in her chest. The majestic holy beast, a white narwhal, swims toward her as she calls its name. Frida's glowing eye opens, and a divine voice addresses Serena as the cousin of the goddess. As Frida delivers the word of the goddess, Serena is overjoyed that the beast called her name. On the next full moon, a great swarm of fish will arrive. Frida declares it will be a historic catch, and instructs Serena to prepare her people for the coming blessing. The vision ends, leaving Serena kneeling on the cliffside once more. She looks up at the sky, still in awe as she thinks of Frida. Serena reflects that the experience felt completely different from her first oracle. In the distance, the holy beast leaps from the ocean before disappearing into the waves. The older blonde man approaches Serena, asking if she was able to interpret the oracle. Serena turns to face him, hesitantly confirming that she understood the message. The assembled group of nobles and priests watches from a distance. Serena relays the prophecy of a historic catch to the relief of the older man, who notes their recent bad luck with fishing. Two priests congratulate her on receiving another oracle so quickly. Serena suddenly turns, shouting for them to wait. A shocked and enraged Diana loudly proclaims that the oracle Serena received is wrong. A stunned silence falls over the group as they all turn to face Diana's outburst. Diana repeats her furious declaration, insisting that Serena's oracle is false. The older blonde man calmly asks Diana what is wrong. Diana claims she also heard the voice of the holy beast. Surrounded by a dark aura, Diana refutes the oracle, declaring the coming fish will be sick and die. The older blonde man and a silver-haired noble realize Diana's prophecy means a coming food shortage. Dietrich and Serena are stunned by Diana's contradictory oracle, Serena wonders if Diana is using charm magic, while Diana glares back with a sinister purple glow. Men on a boat dump barrels of an unknown substance into the sea. The men continue to pour barrels into the ocean from their small boat. The scene shifts to a moonlit view of a grand white castle. Diana smiles confidently, declaring her oracle will come true, and Serena is finished. A red-haired man rushes towards Serena and the blonde priest, desperately calling her name. As the priest asks what's wrong, Serena identifies the man as one of Prince Volkart's men. The red-haired man frantically pleads for Serena's help. He leads her to an infirmary, where a gray-haired physician greets her as the saintess. Serena is shocked to see Prince Volkart lying unconscious in a bed. Serena asks the chief physician about the prince's condition, learning he was poisoned with an unidentifiable substance. Horrified by the news of poison, Serena wonders what's happening. The red-haired man reports a mass fish die-off at the port, which Serena connects to the oracle's large catch. He explains that the prince went to the port to see the scene for himself. The man recounts how Volkart jumped into the water to save 2 drowning children, then begs Serena to save the prince. Lying ill, Volkart weakly prioritizes the children's treatment, as his aide and a worried Serena look on. Serena observes 2 children, a boy and a girl, lying still in infirmary beds. Learning the children were not saved, Serena watches as Volkart weakly calls her name from his bed. Serena stands solemnly between the beds of the 2 deceased children. Serena channels her holy power, a blue light glowing as she tries to heal the boy. She realizes something is wrong as her power drains without properly healing them. The physician reassures an exhausted Serena that the children are fine, and she sighs in relief. Serena suddenly clutches her chest, gasping for air. Thump. She collapses as the physician and the aide rush toward her in alarm. Gasping, she realizes her holy power is not suited for detoxification, only slowing poisons. Looking at the unconscious prince, Serena steels her resolve to save him. Dietrich holds her steady, asking if she is okay. Dietrich warns Serena not to overdo it, explaining the Navy suspects the mass fish death was an act of deliberate poisoning. Serena looks on in horror, questioning if someone actually poisoned the sea. With the aide begging her to proceed, Serena focuses her energy on Volkart, her hands glowing with divine light. A shimmering ribbon of blue energy flows from her hands. Exhausted, Serena collapses onto the bed as Dietrich and another man call out her name in alarm. An aura of glowing snowflakes bursts from her as Dietrich holds her. Dietrich holds the unconscious Serena, realizing with alarm that sea blossoms are forming around her. He urgently orders everyone to clear the area as they watch in shock. Fading into unconsciousness, Serena despairs that her power isn't enough to save the ailing prince. She has a vision of Volkart carrying her to safety, realizing he saved her. Waking up in bed, Serena is stunned by the memory of the sea blossoms appearing. She remembers the sea blossoms are a miracle from the goddess that grants any wish. Serena's eyes widen with a sudden dawning realization. Dietrich orders someone to hide the tide flowers and take Volkart to Seth now that the area is clear. Serena insists Volkart cannot be moved, vowing to stop the poison's progress herself. She urgently commands someone to retrieve the bottle containing the sea blossoms from her room. Dietrich quickly turns and rushes out of the infirmary. Cursing under his breath, Dietrich runs through the halls on his urgent mission. He clutches a glass container holding the glowing sea blossoms. Back in the infirmary, Serena kneels by the unconscious Prince Volkart's bedside. Prince Volkart remains still, surrounded by a faint, magical shimmer. A burst of light emanates from Serena as she channels her remaining power. Drained, she worries that her strength is fading. Dietrich bursts through the door, announcing he's brought the sea blossoms. He holds out the glowing jar to Serena, thanking her for her efforts. Serena's eyes widen as she carefully takes the miraculous item. Dietrich asks if she's truly serious, questioning what happens if the legend isn't true. Gazing at the glowing blossoms in her hands, Serena steels her resolve, declaring they have to do it. She knows there is no other way to save Volkart. Standing over the prince, she tells herself it will be fine and unleashes the blossom's power. A brilliant golden light fills her vision as she feels the power of the goddess. She finds herself before a majestic, golden-haired goddess wielding a trident. Surrounded by ethereal snowflakes, Serena stares in wide-eyed wonder. The divine being is identified as Goddess Latisse. The goddess raises her glowing trident, aiming it directly at Serena. Serena looks up, startled by the sudden surge of divine energy. She is enveloped in brilliant columns of golden light. Bathed in the radiant glow, she looks on in awe. Back in the infirmary, Serena channels the golden energy into the ailing prince. A divine light surrounds Volkart as the healing power takes effect. Volkart's eyes flutter open as he weakly says Serena's name. Overjoyed, Serena calls his name in relief while a stunned Dietrich watches. Dietrich observes the scene, realizing he's just witnessed the goddess's miracle. Whomp! Exhausted, Serena collapses into Dietrich's arms, who catches her and asks if she's okay. He gently tells her to rest as she leans against him, weak but relieved. Serena looks at her hands, still amazed by the power of the goddess she just wielded. Dietrich asks his brother if he is okay, and Volkart reassures him, apologizing for the worry. Serena reflects that the brothers' relationship seems much better than how it was depicted in the novel. Volkart turns to Serena and thanks her, leaving her momentarily speechless. He offers her a warm smile, asking if she was the one who saved him. Serena humbly deflects, insisting she couldn't have done anything without the sea blossom. Dietrich interjects, crediting her power and thanking her for saving his brother's life. He gives her a rare, genuine smile of gratitude. Serena stares back, surprised by his sincere expression. Dietrich gets visibly annoyed, asking why she can't just accept a compliment. Volkart silently watches the exchange between his brother and Serena. Dietrich tells his brother to rest easy and that he is returning to his duties. He then tells a seated Serena that she should also rest, and she agrees. Pausing at the door, Dietrich remarks that her recklessness chills him to the bone. As he walks away, a confused Serena wonders what his comment meant. She puzzles over his strange behavior. Volkart explains with a smile that it's just Dietrich's unique way of showing concern. He then teases Serena, noting how friendly she's become with his brother. Flustered, Serena quickly denies his observation. She changes the subject to his health, and he reassures her that he's fine because of her. Beaming with relief and happiness, Serena says she's really glad. Volkart announces his own return to the field and reminds her not to overdo it. Serena catches the stumbling Volkart, telling him to watch out. A silver-haired woman asks if he's okay. Diana smiles confidently, and Volkart's eyes show his distress. Covering his face, Volkart apologizes and tells Serena not to worry. Serena looks back at him with deep concern. Head bowed, Prince Volkart quietly apologizes. He looks up, calling Serena's name. Volkart asks Serena to listen to his confession, starting a story from his youth. In a flashback, he reveals his father died, shielding his mother and Celestia from a collapsed festival tower. Serena is stunned to learn the previous king died, protecting Celestia. She realizes this explains why she, as the daughter of the woman tied to the king's death, was so disliked at court. Volkart says he knows her mother isn't to blame, but his heart struggles to accept it. He confesses that seeing her face reminds him of Celestia, leaving Serena speechless. Serena reassures him that he isn't at fault either. She apologizes, realizing her presence must have been painful for him. A radiant vision of Serena appears, surrounded by white roses. Volkart watches her with a conflicted expression. A flashback shows a dead bird next to its overturned golden cage. Feathers drift through a dark and sorrowful memory. A young Volkart holds a cat, confessing it did something bad, but his father tells him not to blame the cat. Crying, the young prince offers to take the punishment himself to protect his cat. The king smiles warmly, calling his son kind and brave. His father's voice urges him to become the kindest and bravest person of all. As Volkart wrestles with his memories, Serena gently asks about his condition. Suddenly, Diana bursts in, grabbing Serena and demanding to know what she's doing. A furious Diana glares at them as Serena recognizes her in shock. Diana shoves Serena away from the prince, shouting at her to stay away. Diana furiously accuses Serena of being a lecher, trying to seduce Volkart after ignoring him at the banquet. As she clings to his arm, Diana continues her accusations of seduction. Volkart defends Serena, explaining she saved his life after he was poisoned at sea. Diana reacts in disbelief to the news of the poisoning. Volkart gravely states that he might not have survived without Serena's help. Diana refuses to believe it, claiming she saw Serena using her power on him. Volkart smiles slightly, beginning to confirm her observation. Diana cuts him off, angrily realizing Serena used the power of the sea blossom. Serena and Volkart are both shocked that Diana knows about the sea blossom. Diana internally recalls that Dietrich's mother created the sea blossom and wonders how Serena obtained so much. Volkart asks Serena if she used a wish to get the blossoms, as the legend says. He speculates on what kind of wish she might have made. Serena confesses that there was simply no other way to save his life. Volkart looks at her, absorbing the weight of her words. He turns his attention from Serena to the fuming Diana. Volkart sternly tells Diana that this entire matter must be kept secret. He warns that if the king finds out, Serena will be burdened further, asking if Diana truly wants that. Outraged, Diana demands to know if he thinks she's an inferior saint. Volkart clarifies that he's not, but that the king is obsessed with the sea blossom. He asks Diana to cooperate with him in order to protect Serena. Diana's fist trembles with suppressed rage and jealousy. Turning her back on them, she threatens to report everything. She glares back, vowing to tell His Majesty the King everything she saw. Diana storms out of the room as Volkart calls her name in dismay. Diana worries about what will happen if the king finds out. A shocked, white-haired king slams his desk, demanding to know if Diana's report is true. A smiling, dark-haired woman confirms she saw that woman using the, quote, sea blossom. Standing before the king's desk, she insists he punish Serena for failing to report such an important event. The king questions punishing her, stating Serena must work as a saint to gather more sea blossoms. The dark-haired woman protests, shocked that the king would overlook Serena using the blossom without permission. He explains it was necessary to save Volkart, but she desperately urges him to reconsider, as she worries Serena will use the power again. The king looks out the window, telling her she needn't state the obvious. The king declares Serena's actions must be strictly restricted from now on, as the dark-haired woman smiles behind him. With a sinister smile, she agrees with his decision completely. Alone at his desk, the king mutters in disbelief that Serena actually used the sea blossom. He realizes the legend was true, calling this discovery the greatest harvest. Surrounded by thorny vines, he menacingly thinks of Serena's name. He opens a dark, ornate box on his desk, revealing several glowing crystals. He vows to squeeze everything out of Serena, just as he did with Alicia. A dark, thorny transition shifts the scene. At a seaside dock, a group of men investigate the water. A blonde man in white kneels, observing numerous dead fish floating on the surface. A silver-haired man confirms that the poison is foreign to their seas, and the blonde man listens intently. The two men deduce that the poison was deliberately spread. With a cunning smile, the blonde man wonders who would benefit from such an act. A vision of a glowing, purple-haired woman appears as the silver-haired man urgently calls for the priest. The blonde priest dismisses the concern as mere speculation. He reflects that this incident may have narrowly saved the saintess's life. An aide rushes over, calling for the priest and asking what has happened. The aide whispers shocking news to the concerned priest. The priest demands to know what happened, echoed by the silver-haired man. The blonde priest looks troubled, hesitating to reveal what he just learned. Elsewhere, Seth reels in shock, learning that Saint Serena has been ordered into confinement. The blonde priest and two others arrive at the grand doors of the king's chambers. He enters the throne room, apologizing for interrupting the king. The king looks up from his desk and asks the priest what he needs. The priest asks why His Majesty is moving Saint Serena to the Chamber of Silence. The king pointedly asks the priest if he knew about that matter. The priest explains Serena is blessed by the sacred beast, prompting the king's shocked realization that she can produce the sea blossom. The priest argues she should be kept in Lady Alicia's room, deeming the Chamber of Silence too harsh. He adds that the temple can manage the sea blossom, if that's the only concern. The Chamber of Silence is described as a place for disciplining royalty, essentially a prison. The king challenges the priest, asking if he still objects now that he knows Serena used the blossom to grant a wish. Stunned that the wish-granting legend is true, the priest realizes someone must have manipulated Serena into using it. The king ominously asks if the power isn't dangerous, declaring the sea blossom must not be exploited. As the priest leaves, his aide stops him, asking about the saintess's fate. The aide reveals she won't be able to avoid confinement, leaving the priest to wonder why. The priest realizes with dawning horror that the king will never let Serena go, not when she is the key to achieving his ambition. In an infirmary, a royal maid asks Seth if Saintess Serena is present. Seth informs the maids that Serena has already returned to her duties. He questions their purpose, and the lead maid announces they've come by royal decree to escort the saint. As Seth leaves to comply, Dietrich watches him go from a nearby doorway. Dietrich grimly tells Seth to hurry up and go. Dietrich urgently grabs Serena's arm, telling her to come with him. As they run, she asks if the king found out. He confirms it, saying they must escape his reach. He asks if anyone saw her use the sea blossom, and she apologetically confesses that Diana saw everything. Dietrich freezes, spotting other nobles down the hall. He grimly admits that he was also careless. He warns her that if she is caught, she will lose her freedom and be worked to death by the king. Horrified, Serena listens as he explains the king has a long-standing desire. She questions him about this long-standing dream he's had for years. He reveals the king's ambition, to expand the nation of Alessa and conquer the entire continent. Serena is stunned, realizing King Ferdinand plans to invade the continent. She panics, recalling the novel's final boss, Tyrant Xavier, had the same ambition, but the current king was never depicted this way. Dietrich snaps her out of her thoughts, urging her to go, and she hesitantly agrees. As they flee, she realizes such an important part of the plot was never mentioned in the novel. She wonders if she overlooked it, then recalls that in the book, The invaders were Serena and Dietrich's son, Xavier. Dietrich leads her through a wooden door, telling her to follow. Ascending a stone staircase, he vows he won't let the king use her power and will help her escape. He tells her about a hidden passage in the palace as he leads the way. They emerge from a secret, vine-covered cave in a sunlit forest. He explains the passage connects to the forest north of the palace. A man named Valentin greets them by a carriage, calling out to His Highness Dietrich. Serena recognizes him as Dietrich's subordinate as Valentin expresses relief and urges them quickly into the carriage. The covered wagon speeds away through the dense woods. Inside the carriage, Dietrich offers Serena a cloth-wrapped object. She cautiously takes it, wondering what it could be. Unwrapping the cloth, she discovers a large, glowing, yellow magic stone. As their carriage rattles through a town, she asks his intention. He explains the stone will help her escape. She looks at him intently, calling his title. She asks how he feels about a saintess whose magic stone was removed, questioning if they're not resisting that same fate. Her profound question leaves Dietrich momentarily speechless. He reveals the stone was his mother's. He kept it to save her life, admitting it was selfish, much like his father's actions. He gently takes her hand, which holds the precious stone. He declares that he doesn't want her to die, and will use any means necessary to protect her. He pleads with her to accept his help, even if his reasons seem self-serving. Serena accepts, resolving that the cycle of saints sacrificing their lives for magic stones must end with the king. She sits in quiet contemplation, holding the stone in her lap. Their carriage continues its journey through the cobblestone streets. Valentin announces they've arrived at the meeting point, and Dietrich acknowledges him. Serena peeks out of the carriage to see Seth, who tells her to come with him. Recognizing Seth, she listens as he explains he's there to help until Dietrich secures her final escape route. From behind the curtain, Dietrich promises he will come for her and tells her to stay safe. Serena and Seth watch as the carriage carrying Dietrich departs. She clutches her cloak, her eyes following the carriage until it's gone. The scene transitions in a blur of light and color. A view of the sunlit royal palace establishes the change in location. Inside a lavish hall, two men converse casually. The blonde priest Seth arrives to find a frantic aide calling his name. The aide reports that the saintess is missing and hasn't appeared for her afternoon duties. Upon hearing she was last seen at the Navy headquarters, the priest rushes off, demanding to know her whereabouts. Dietrich appears, stopping the priest in his tracks. The blonde priest stares at Dietrich in confusion, stating he thought he was with the saintess. Dietrich informs the blonde priest that the Navy is also searching for the saintess. He then states that he must leave on urgent business. The blonde priest questions the nature of his urgent business. Dietrich explains a merchant ship bound for Weiden has gone off course, and he must investigate. The priest grows alarmed, realizing the implication of a ship heading to a neighboring country. He warns Dietrich that the king will never give up on the saintess and will spare no one who abducts her. Dietrich grimly agrees before turning to depart with his men. The blonde priest watches him leave as an aide calls out his title. The scene shifts to a moonlit coastline, where a winged horse soars over the forest. Seth and Serena ride swiftly through the trees on the magical steed. He tells her they are close to the meeting point. Reining in the horse, he announces that they have arrived. Serena peers out from behind him with a look of surprise. They arrive at a rocky shore, where a small boat is waiting for them. She looks towards the waiting vessel, wondering if it's a ship. From the boat, Dietrich calls out, asking if Serena is safe. Overjoyed and relieved, Serena calls out Dietrich's name. He instructs her to board the ship anchored offshore, which surprises her. Dietrich confirms it's the merchant ship destined for Weiden. Serena realizes with a shock that he is planning to help her flee the country. Dietrich explains she must hide on the continent to escape the king, adding that he's asked Seth to guide her. Serena wonders if such an escape is even possible for a saintess. He urgently tells her they have no time and must board immediately. Serena hesitantly agrees to his plan. Dietrich reaches out his hand to help her down from the rocks to the boat. Just as their hands are about to touch, a shout rings out. There she is! They are ambushed by a troop of the king's royal guards on the shore. The captain of the guard demands the saintess return at once. Dietrich recognizes the guards as the captain announces they are acting on the king's orders. As the king's decree forbids her from leaving, Dietrich grabs Serena's hand and pulls her toward the boat. He shoves her forcefully into the vessel to hasten their escape. Shocked that the guards are shooting, Dietrich orders his men to form a defensive line without engaging. A member of their party panics, asking what they should do now. Dietrich tells Serena to head for the ship offshore, vowing that he and his men will hold the guards off. As the boat pushes away from the rocks, Dietrich urgently yells for them to go. The guards draw their bows, and the captain gives the command to fire. In a flash of green light, Dietrich erects a powerful magic barrier deflecting the volley of arrows. Those in the boat watch in astonishment as he blocks the attack with magic. Serena is horrified that they are attacking the prince, but the guard captain declares their orders are to eliminate any obstruction. One of Dietrich's men warns him not to retaliate, and he grimly agrees. The guards prepare a second volley and are again ordered to fire. Dietrich and his men stand firm, reinforcing their glowing magic shields. Their barrier holds as the boat with Serena safely pulls away from the shore. Watching arrows rain down around them, Serena worries that they can't hold out much longer on the defensive. Her hands beginning to glow, she stands and declares she will help. Seth shouts for her to stop, calling her name in alarm. He warns that if Dietrich, the head of the Navy, attacks the royal guards, it will be considered a coup d'etat. Horrified by the word coup, Serena freezes as Seth reassures her that Dietrich can handle the situation. He tells her she must trust Dietrich. Serena looks back at Dietrich, her mind filled with concern as he stands his ground. Seth watches the confrontation from the boat with a worried expression. As their boat speeds toward the ship, a final thought declares their only focus now is escape and survival. The scene transitions to a grand, sunlit palace hall adorned in blue and gold. Two maids watch with startled expressions as a dark-haired official walks past them. The maids bow their heads as the man and his silver-haired companion pass by. The two maids whisper to each other, one realizing with a gasp who is being escorted by the royal guard. In a crowded hall, a shocked onlooker realizes Prince Dietrich is being brought in with his hands bound. Dietrich is forced to his knees by the guards, his expression defiant. He kneels before the king's throne, facing the entire royal court. Dietrich maintains a cold, unwavering stare, resolute in his actions. The king furiously demands to know why Dietrich has done this. Enraged, the king declares the priestess is indispensable and screams at Dietrich to reveal where he has taken her. Dietrich remains silent, his gaze fixed and unyielding. A dark-haired man in a red-trimmed uniform tells Dietrich he understands the desire to protect the priestess, but not like this. The king accuses Dietrich of treason and demands to know if he intends to let Serena follow in her mother's tragic footsteps. The gathered nobles murmur in confusion, questioning the mention of Alicia's footsteps and wondering if Prince Dietrich truly abducted the priestess. The blonde priest recalls Dietrich's cover story about investigating a ship to Wadden, realizing it's highly likely the priestess is stowed away on it. An aide reports to the court that Priestess Serena boarded the merchant ship bound for Wadden, confirming their suspicions. The blonde priest is alarmed, thinking that fleeing to Wadden is far too reckless a plan. The king looks down at Dietrich and pointedly asks if he sent Serena to Wadden. After a moment of tense silence, Dietrich looks up from the floor and answers with a simple no. Frustrated, the king demands to know the merchant ship's other scheduled stops. An aide speaks up, naming the port of Lilleheim with a look of sudden understanding. The king states they must not provoke that country, then turns his fury on Dietrich, demanding to know where Serena is in Lilleheim. Dietrich remains stubbornly silent, refusing to answer his father. Suddenly, guards rush forward and seize two of Dietrich's kneeling men. As the dark-haired man identifies the captured men as Dietrich's subordinates, the king angrily declares that Serena is a powerful magic user whose loss would be an act of treason. The king screams for the execution of those who aided her escape, as the two captured men struggle in terror. Standing before his bound subordinates, Dietrich offers himself in their place, stating he should be the one to be beheaded. His men look up at him in shock and disbelief, calling out his title. Dietrich takes full responsibility, declaring that his subordinates only followed his orders and that he alone plotted the entire affair. The blonde priest and the dark-haired man react with shock, both calling out Dietrich's name. The king explodes in rage, citing the danger her absence poses to Aleza before demanding Dietrich admit he abducted the priestess. Having secured a confession, the king roars for Dietrich and his men to be imprisoned. Dietrich closes his eyes, accepting his fate without another word. Dietrich and his loyal men are escorted out of the throne room by the royal guards. The king turns to the dark-haired man, calling him Volkart, and orders him to contact the Lilleheim consul to protect the priestess. He gives Volkart permission to use force if needed, his only command to find Serena. Volkart dutifully accepts. Volkart lowers his head, contemplating the grave order he has just received. His private thoughts reveal a deep concern as he prays for Serena's safety. The scene shifts to a sunny, tropical port where a large ship is docked. Three figures in dark cloaks walk together down the wooden pier. They make their way into a bright and bustling foreign marketplace. Seth confirms to his companions that they have disembarked safely. Serena, now disguised in a cap, identifies the port as Lilleheim and marvels at how different the atmosphere is from Aleza. A peaceful transition shows a palm frond against the bright sky. Seth clarifies their true location, They are in Soltia, a country in the continent's southeast. Serena smiles, taking in the new and exciting sights around her. Seth explains their escape route on a map, showing they boarded a ship bound for Waden with a stop in Lilheim. Serena confirms she understands the layered deception. The destination of Waden was a feint, and the stop at Lilheim was also a bluff. Seth looks on with a serious expression, his plan having succeeded. Seth reveals they changed the ship's destination to Soltia, leaving Serena stunned by the elaborate plan. He explains they spread false rumors of pirates near Lilheim to justify the route change. Seth tells her Dietrich is determined to protect her no matter the cost. Deeply moved, Serena whispers Dietrich's name, her heart full of gratitude. Seth outlines the next step. Meet a partner, move to a hideout, and await contact from Dietrich. Clutching her cloak, Serena silently prays for Dietrich's safety. The scene shifts to an enraged king, slamming his desk as he demands to know why the priestess hasn't been found after 5 days. A dark-haired man apologizes, explaining the difficulty of searching outside Aleza. The king asks what Dietrich is doing. The aide replies that he has done nothing and continues to remain silent in his cell. The king narrows his eyes, wondering if Dietrich is buying time and what his true plan is. A dark-haired woman named Diana approaches the throne, telling the king she has a good idea. The scene returns to a sunny foreign city. At their hideout, Seth returns with a bag of food and greets his companions. Serena, now without her disguise, is asked if anything strange has happened. She reports that the town is quiet as their dark-haired companion confirms nothing is out of the ordinary. Suddenly, Serena feels a jolt of energy from the bag she placed on the table. She realizes the magic stone she received from Prince Dietrich is glowing brightly. As she holds the communication stone, she wonders if it's a message from Dietrich, but a voice declares it's an emergency. She looks down at the stone, confused by the sudden dire warning. The urgent message repeats, Prince Dietrich will be executed at this rate. Serena and her companions reel in shock as she asks what the message means. The stone relays that the king made a sudden decision. The dark-haired man asks if they can send a message back, but Seth warns it's too risky. Seth grimly notes that the king played his first card while they wait for Dietrich's contact. He speculates that Dietrich has been charged with aiding the priestess's escape and disrupting order. The realization dawns on Serena. Dietrich is being executed for helping her. Seth and the other man watch her with grim, silent expressions. Serena stands speechless, her mind racing with the horrific news. In a town square, a royal announcer reads from a scroll, calling for attention. The gathered crowd murmurs, wondering about the sudden announcement from the castle. The announcer declares that in 7 days, a public execution will be held for a crime against the country's governance. The crowd erupts in shock and disbelief, realizing they are going to execute Prince Dietrich. A man runs frantically through a grand palace hall. He bursts in, calling out to the blonde priest that the situation is serious. An aide whispers the urgent news into the shocked priest's ear. The aide's message is revealed. The king has ordered Prince Dietrich's public execution. The blonde priest recoils, thinking the king's anxiety has driven him mad. His aide informs him that the execution was suggested by Lady Diana, shocking him even more. The priest realizes Diana manipulated the king with her illusionary arts. He understands her clear intention: eliminate Dietrich and Serena to secure Volkart's path to the throne. He grimly acknowledges that she has plotted her scheme well. The priest asks when the execution is, and the aide confirms it is in 7 days and has already been announced. Feeling the pressure of time, the priest wonders what to do, certain Dietrich must have a plan. Dietrich sits alone in his cell, his expression calm and resolute. In the throne room, Volkart pleads with the king to reconsider Dietrich's punishment. The king looks out the window, telling Volkart that the decision depends on Serena. Horrified, Volkart realizes the king is using Dietrich as bait to lure Serena back. The king stands atop his desk, declaring the entire plan is a gamble. Volkart argues that Dietrich would never allow Serena to return after going to such lengths to free her. With a cruel look, the king declares that if Serena doesn't return, Dietrich's execution will proceed. Volkart confronts the king, questioning the point of punishing Dietrich and warning it will only cause distrust. The king states that Dietrich is trying to remove the priestess from their governance, an act he cannot overlook. Volkart desperately reminds the king that Dietrich is his grandson, just as he is. With a scornful laugh, the king dismisses the argument as nonsense. The king explodes, declaring the priestess's flight unprecedented, and that Aleza's power depends on her. Clutching a jewel on his chest, he roars that her power is his power, as Volkart looks on in shock. Composing himself, the king asks Volkart if he truly understands the danger and rarity of that power. For the sake of Aleza, the king declares, they cannot let her go. The king turns to the window and informs Volkart that he is transferring command of the navy to him. Volkart questions if this means he's being put in charge of Dietrich's subordinates. The king simply confirms. The king reveals his suspicion that Dietrich has a plan to mobilize his men even while imprisoned. He orders Volkart to use his new authority to stop whatever Dietrich is planning, but Volkart hesitates. Volkart accepts the order, his mind racing with the realization that the king intends to crush Dietrich. Back at the hideout, a determined Serena clutches the magic stone, vowing she can't let the prince be executed for her sake. Seth appears, forbidding her from returning to Aleza and shocking her with his firm refusal. He tells her the execution is a clear trap to lure her out, a fact Serena grimly accepts. As Serena frets, the dark-haired companion assures her they have a backup plan if they can't contact Dietrich. In disbelief, Serena asks if they truly aren't returning, and Seth confirms they will proceed with their next plan. Seth sternly asks if she intends to ruin the escape Dietrich risked his very life to give her. Her resolve wavers as she admits she can't just abandon him. Her dark-haired companion speaks gently, acknowledging her concern for the prince. He reminds her, however, that they have strict orders to complete their mission, regardless of Dietrich's fate. Serena clutches the stone, looking torn and distraught. She tries to convince herself that Dietrich is capable enough to overcome the situation on his own, but a single word echoes her doubt. Overwhelmed by anxiety, she feels her heart grow restless. Suddenly, the magic stone in her hand begins to glow with a faint purple light. The stone erupts in a golden light, startling Serena and her companions. A voice emanates from the crystal, asking if she can hear him. She and her companions stare at the stone as she recognizes the voice of Prince Volkart. Volkart introduces himself and urges Serena to listen as her companion moves protectively. He delivers shocking news. As of today, command of the Navy has been transferred to him. As a result, he explains, Dietrich's supporters in the Navy are now completely immobilized. Volkart declares he will not accept his brother's execution and asks Serena to join forces with him. Serena stares at the stone, utterly stunned by the unexpected proposal. A single purpose echoes from the stone: to save Dietrich. The message repeats with glowing intensity. Serena is left speechless, processing the idea of joining Volkart to save Dietrich. Seth cuts in, asking Serena if she intends to stop the execution. Volkart's voice adds a new layer, suggesting Dietrich is staying in prison for a hidden purpose. Serena wonders what Dietrich could possibly be planning to do at a public execution. Volkart admits he can guess his brother's plan, but warns it won't be enough to stop the execution. He makes a direct plea to Serena, stating he wants to save Dietrich. She looks down at the stone, bewildered, and asks how it could even be possible. Volkart reveals his trump card. With command of both the army and navy, he can threaten force to negotiate. The prince's proposition momentarily blinds Serena and her two companions. The dark-haired man speculates that they need to prove Prince Dietrich is indispensable. Hearing this, Serena's eyes widen with sudden realization as she declares, "That's it." A spark of hope ignites within her as she announces that she has an idea. The scene shifts to a lively, crowded tavern. In a tavern, a blond man slams his mug down, demanding to know what Prince Dietrich did. A patron explains there was a commotion on the beach where the prince supposedly tried to abduct the saintess, shocking the listeners. Another man clarifies the real story. The king tried to imprison the saintess to monopolize her power. The blond man erupts in anger, declaring the king's actions unacceptable, but his friend tells him to calm down. Realizing Prince Dietrich was trying to protect the saintess, the man reaffirms his belief in the prince. Prince Volkart's expression is grim and determined. He and his men approach the prison gates under the moonlight. Volkart arrives at the cell where his brother Dietrich is being held. With a heavy heart, Volkart speaks his brother's name. He asks Dietrich how long he intends to stay imprisoned, offering to plead with the king for his life. Dietrich realizes Volkart has figured out his plan to abolish the saintess system at the public execution. Volkart warns him that the people love the saintess, and such a move will turn everyone against him. He continues, stating Dietrich will be branded an evil prince trying to abolish their beloved saintess. Grasping the bars, Dietrich cries out that he is only trying to save the saintess. Volkart tells him resistance is futile before making a proposal of his own. Dietrich flatly refuses, insisting he can handle it alone, prompting a shocked Volkart to call out the name Xavier. Stunned, Dietrich asks why he would use that name, as Volkart explains Serena received a prophecy from the goddess. Dietrich perceptively asks if the prophecy mentioned that name, which Volkart confirms. Volkart delivers the prophecy's warning to Dietrich. He must not be lost here. The day of the execution arrives, and the gathered crowd looks on in disbelief. Watched by the stunned populace, Dietrich is escorted by guards to the gallows. As he stands bound on the platform, a voice from the crowd calls out to Prince Dietrich. The crowd erupts into a unified plea, shouting for the prince's release and an end to the execution. A father in the crowd recalls how Dietrich saved his family, convinced this is all a terrible mistake as others shout their opposition. From a high balcony, the king coldly observes the scene below. The king, flanked by Diana and an aide, looks down upon the execution square. The king notes with displeasure that the saintess has not yet appeared. Diana speculates that Serena might be watching, ready to come to Dietrich's aid once the ceremony begins. With a sinister smile and an aura of dark magic, Diana asks the king if they should proceed to hang Dietrich. Under her influence, the king's eyes glow as he roars the order to hang Dietrich. The rope is pulled, hoisting a bound Dietrich into the air. Dietrich hangs limply from the gallows, his eyes closed in resignation. The crowd screams in horror, unable to believe the execution is proceeding. A wide view shows the massive crowd witnessing the horrific event in the castle square. On a separate balcony, Prince Volkart watches with his blonde aide. Volkart orders his aide to restrain the guards and protect the people if a riot breaks out. The aide laments that Dietrich himself could have stopped this public execution if he were free. He recalls the king's mad declaration of power, realizing they couldn't change his mind. Volkart thinks about the king's authoritarianism, finding the situation completely unacceptable. His resolve hardens as he vows to save his brother, even if it means defying the king himself. His aide tells him he's done all that he could. A royal guard threatens to arrest the protesting crowd, but the people defiantly continue demanding the prince be freed. The father from before looks on in sorrow, regretting he brought his children to witness such a scene. He tells his worried wife to take the children home, choosing to remain behind. Suddenly, the rope is released, and Dietrich plummets towards the platform. As chaos ensues, royal guards begin to violently suppress the protesting citizens. A group of men bravely charges the gallows, determined to save the prince. A guard raises his weapon, warning a protester to stop or die. The man who stayed behind yields to the guard's threat, but his eyes widen in sudden, utter shock at something he sees. As his family watches in horror, a guard swings his sword at the defiant protester. The man's wife and daughters scream his name in terror. Suddenly, a massive spell erupts, freezing time across the entire square. The attacking guard is caught mid-swing, encased in the blue, icy magic. Volkart recognizes the saintess's magic as Dietrich, still hanging, desperately calls out for Serena. As Dietrich senses her presence, the crowd below spots her and shouts in excitement. A man in the crowd points up towards the castle walls. Serena appears on a balcony, reaching out as a divine light surrounds her. The crowd erupts into cheers, hailing the great saintess, Lady Serena. She stands alone on the high balcony, looking down upon the scene. Serena addresses the crowd, her voice carrying as she pleads for everyone to calm down. Confused, a citizen asks if she hasn't come to save the prince. The king notes her return, while Diana vows this will be Serena's end, urging him to capture her. Serena calmly states that she has come to resolve the misunderstanding between the king and the prince. Her bold declaration leaves the king and Diana speechless. With solemn authority, she prepares to offer her advice as the current saintess. Serena declares with conviction that this public execution is unjust. The crowd roars in agreement, demanding the execution be stopped as a smirking Dietrich watches. Diana leans over the railing in a rage, accusing Dietrich of manipulating the saintess and committing rebellion. Watching from his own balcony, a grim Volkart realizes the kingdom is about to be torn apart. His thoughts turn to Serena, his expression hardening with resolve. Serena then quiets the crowd, making a stunning admission. Prince Dietrich has indeed committed a crime. A wave of shocked disbelief washes over the crowd at her words. She clarifies that he only acted because she had asked him to. The people murmur in confusion, questioning if a saintess is allowed to leave the temple without permission. Serena admits it was an unthinkable act, but she had no choice as time was running out. Diana furiously rebukes her, questioning if anything could be more important than the king's will. A holy symbol appears behind Serena as she prepares her response. She reveals her actions were guided by an oracle from the goddess Lotus. The king is stunned, but Diana calls it an impossible lie, claiming an oracle can't be received directly. Serena explains she received the oracle and had to hurry to the place where the goddess would descend. She then names the person who helped her, Prince Dietrich. Dietrich looks up from the gallows while Volkart watches intently. The crowd's mood shifts again, realizing the prince helped the saintess follow the goddess's will. Diana desperately tries to sway the king, insisting Dietrich still broke the rules. The king, his eyes glowing ominously, ignores her and asks Serena what the goddess said. Diana watches in horror as the king seems to fall under some influence. Serena looks down at him and poses a question, asking if he knows a certain name. The king's face turns pale with utter shock and dread. He stumbles back, whispering the name Xavier, as a confused Diana asks who that is. The king clutches his head in agony, screaming at her to never say that name again. He trembles, realizing the forbidden name must have been part of the goddess's oracle. A dark memory reveals an ancient warning about a curse tied to the name Xavier that will end Aleza. The king seethes, furious that she spoke the forbidden name so carelessly. He desperately wonders what else the devastating oracle might have revealed. The king glares down from his balcony at Serena on hers. Serena waits with a somber expression, her eyes downcast. Hearing the prophecy of doom, the crowd panics, fearing Aleza will be destroyed. Serena continues, revealing that to save them, the power of 3 wise individuals is needed. The king listens intently, pondering the meaning of her words. She explains the goddess said that with the power of 3 people, the prophesied disaster could be avoided. Hesitantly, Serena looks to the side. She then names the first person needed to save them, Prince Dietrich. The king is left speechless by her declaration. Diana furiously questions if she means Prince Dietrich's power is needed to save Aleza. Invoking the goddess Lattice, Saintess Serena proclaims Dietrich's innocence and demands his execution be revoked. The crowd stares in stunned disbelief at her bold demand. Their shock turns to fervent agreement, shouting to save the prince and stop the execution as the king seethes. The king furiously questions the goddess's will, ordering the saintess be brought to him immediately. Prince Volkart steps forward, calmly reminding the king of the situation. He warns his father that the people's respect for the saintess is absolute and their resentment will be unstoppable. As the crowd cheers wildly, men work to free Prince Dietrich from the gallows. Freed, Dietrich calmly adjusts his shirt collar with a confident look. He glances up towards the royal balcony. Dietrich loudly vows that he will definitely protect the saintess. Volkart addresses the king, who grits his teeth and finally concedes, ordering the execution canceled. The crowd erupts into joyous cheers as the king and his retinue watch from the balcony. From his own balcony, Prince Volkart observes the outcome with a faint, knowing smile. The scene transitions to a grand palace hallway where Dietrich walks with his men. His aide expresses immense relief that he is safe, admitting how worried he was. His blonde aide marvels at the saintess receiving a direct oracle, but Dietrich reveals it was a bluff. He clarifies that the clever bluff was entirely the saintess's idea. Serena runs up to him, overjoyed to see him safe. As he says her name, he chides her for such a risky plan, but she snaps back, asking how he dares to judge her. With tears in her eyes, she asks if he has any idea how worried she was. Dietrich pulls her into a tight embrace, begging her never to do anything so reckless again. He holds her head gently, confessing that if something happened to her, he would be in pain. Serena's eyes widen, her heart touched by his words. This is an example of an unsafe password. Password 123. It is easy to guess, because it uses a common word followed by numbers. This is an example of an unsafe password. Password 123. It is easy to guess because it uses a common word followed by numbers. A flashback begins, showing a young Dietrich pleading with his grandfather. He begs for his mother to be taken to a healer. His grandfather coldly dismisses him, stating Alicia's illness is incurable, but the boy insists a great creator can heal her. The grandfather explains that everyone, including Alicia, has a role to play in life. A horrified young Dietrich stands surrounded by a dark, foreboding aura. The memory flashes to a bloody scene where a hand clutches a glowing purple magic stone. Young Dietrich peeks through a doorway into a darkened room. He realizes with horror that his grandfather's goal was to obtain his mother's magic stone. The terrible truth hits him. His mother was left to die so her stone could be taken, just like the saintess system he now despises. In the memory, a younger Dietrich clutches the stone, demanding it back as a voice calls his name. The dark and painful memory fades away. The scene returns to the present, showing the palace at sunset. In his room, Dietrich asks Serena if she is all right, suggesting the infirmary would be better. He explains he brought her here to discuss sensitive matters without being overheard. Serena watches him with a serious expression. Dietrich gently takes her hand, offering to let her heal the wound on his wrist from the hanging. She obliges, her hands glowing as she casts a healing spell on his wrist. A bright blue light envelops his arm as her magic takes effect. Dietrich looks down, contemplating the feeling of the saintess's holy power. Serena apologizes as Dietrich asks why. She admits she ruined his original plan. She confesses her foolishness, believing abolishing the system was enough, but it only caused more trouble for him. Dietrich says abolishing the system is meaningless without the people's support. She looks at him, touched by his understanding. Dietrich acknowledges the people's support for the saintess, but remains firm on abolishing the system. Serena places a hand over her heart, vowing she is with him. Her resolve seems to move him. He calls her a strange saintess, prompting her angry reply. The mood shifts abruptly. Dietrich seriously asks how she knew about the name Xavier. Flustered, Serena struggles to answer. She thinks about the novel, a secret she can't reveal. She tries to explain it as unexplainable knowledge from another's memories. She's shocked when he reveals he and his brother were never officially told. Dietrich explains the name is a secret passed only to the heir, stunning Serena. She asks how he learned the name. He reveals he learned it from their father's diary, which he read with his brother as a child. A series of memories reveals the diary mentioned a secret passed from a past saintess on the day his father became crown prince. The flashback concludes as the brothers read the devastating prophecy. The name of Aleza's destroyer is Xavier. Dietrich admits the king's reaction proved the diary was true. Serena somberly agrees with him. Her thoughts reveal a horrifying truth from the novel. Aleza will be destroyed by her and Dietrich's son, Xavier. The novel's tragic ending shows Serena's counterpart executed for secretly giving birth. Serena wonders about the ominous name, questioning its origin. A stark realization dawns on her. If they never marry, Xavier will not be born. She watches Dietrich gaze out at the evening sky. Her expression is filled with grim determination. He turns from the balcony, his gaze meeting hers. Dietrich says he has a suggestion for her. He asks her to leave the palace and come to his villa. Serena is stunned by his unexpected invitation. He explains that their public relationship would give him a pretext to protect her from the king. She declines, saying she must uphold her duties as saintess. Dietrich passionately insists he cannot allow her fate to be decided by others. He implores her to stay by his side. Serena is left speechless by his fervent plea. She realizes he is thinking of Saintess Serena, not her. Torn, she thinks they can't be together, yet feels a pull towards him. An attendant's voice suddenly breaks the tension. Serena pulls back as Dietrich looks on. A maid apologizes for the interruption. An attendant announces the arrival of Prince Volkart. Volkart arrives, checking on Serena, who apologizes for her sudden departure. She smiles, thanking him for the cooperation that saved Dietrich. Volkart's expression turns serious as he prepares to ask a blunt question. He looks at her directly and asks, "Will you be my queen?" Serena stares back in complete and utter shock. This is an example of an unsafe password. Password 123. It is easy to guess because it uses a common word followed by numbers. Prince Volkart looks at Serena intently and asks, "Will you be my queen?" Stunned by the sudden question, Serena asks Prince Volkart what he means, but he tells her it isn't sudden at all. He reveals that ever since he invited her to be his banquet partner, he'd already made up his mind. She recalls them at the banquet, shocked that the proposal is connected to that event. He asks if she believes he proposed under the king's order, and she acknowledges his strong sense of responsibility. Volkart admits that at first, marrying the saintess was his mission as a prince, but that has now changed. He looks down at her with sincere emotion, confessing he truly wants to protect her. He knows the king's intense obsession means he hasn't given up on her, and now Volkart wants to protect her from everything. With heartfelt sincerity, he repeats his proposal, asking her to please be his queen. Serena is left speechless, her mind echoing his desire to protect her. He smiles gently, understanding that his sudden proposal must be troubling for her. From down the hall, Dietrich watches the scene unfold. Dietrich's expression remains grim and silent as he observes them. Volkart tells Serena he's in no hurry for an answer and urges her to think about it carefully. Bam! Serena abruptly shuts the heavy doors in his face. Leaning against the door, Serena's mind races, consumed by thoughts of Volkart's proposal. Her thoughts turn to Dietrich as she wonders if she should accept Volkart's marriage proposal. A sudden thought seems to startle her. Dietrich suddenly appears, cornering her against a wall and demanding to know what she will do. Utterly shocked to see him, she can only think his name and stammer in confusion. TSK. With a frustrated sound, Dietrich turns away from her. He suddenly grabs her wrist and begins pulling her away as she cries out in surprise. A maid passing by gasps, shocked to see Dietrich dragging Lady Serena away. Dietrich announces to the maid that Serena will be under his care at his villa from now on. Serena is completely floored by his declaration, exclaiming, "Huh?" The maid, however, misinterprets the situation and squeals with romantic excitement. The scene transitions to a grand, moonlit villa as Serena's bewildered thoughts echo. As they enter, an attendant welcomes Dietrich back, but is stunned to see Lady Serena with him. Dietrich orders a room be prepared for Serena, and the attendant, though surprised, quickly agrees. A maid gently leads the dazed Serena away as Dietrich watches her go. The maid opens the doors to a stunningly luxurious bedroom suite. From behind a screen, the maid asks if the bathwater temperature is to her liking. Serena sits in the opulent bath, completely bewildered and wondering what is happening. Her mind flashes back to Dietrich's earlier invitation to come to his villa. She panics in the tub, realizing that if she lives there, everyone will assume they are a couple and that the staff already does. Soaking in the water, Serena questions her next move, knowing the king will pursue her no matter what. She realizes that no matter her choice, she'll still be under someone's protection, and wonders if that's truly okay. Later, a maid announces that she has brought the saintess to Dietrich, who is reading in his library. Dietrich looks up from his book with a determined expression, having made his choice. Serena enters the library, now wearing a simple white nightgown, followed by a maid. She stands uncertainly in the beautiful but revealing nightgown. Dietrich bluntly asks what she's wearing. She explains it's the nightwear the maids prepared for her. She inwardly panics, mortified and certain she is being completely misunderstood. Trying to distract herself, Serena's attention is drawn to a massive bookshelf lining the wall. With a low rumble, Dietrich pushes on the bookshelf, revealing it to be a secret door. Serena watches in amazement as he reveals a hidden room behind the bookshelf. Dietrich explains that the books within are records about the previous saintess. She asks how he acquired them. Knowing such books are banned by the temple, he coolly explains that he had a priest create replicas of the forbidden texts. Dietrich pulls out a red manuscript, revealing it's a medical book detailing the saintess's body and her magic stone, and invites her to look. Serena is horrified by the anatomical diagram showing the saintess's magic stone extraction procedure. She sees the magic stone's perilous location, nestled frighteningly close to the heart. Dietrich confirms that if the stone grows too large, it will press on the heart and cause death. She asks with dawning horror if the stone grows when it's not extracted. He confirms her fear and directs her to a passage in the Red Book. He reads that the tide flower accelerates the stone's growth and asks if she has ever felt chest pain. She denies feeling pain but remembers a strange warmth, realizing with a jolt how many times she has used the tide flower. A horrifying conclusion dawns on her. Her magic stone must have grown quite large. Dietrich reveals his mother's stone also grew quickly, which is why she married his father before her term as saintess ended. He explains the one way to stop the stone's deadly growth is to conceive a child, which erases the saintess's power. She is utterly stunned by the shocking revelation that pregnancy is the only cure. Putting the pieces together, she asks if saving her life is the reason he wants to marry her. He remains silent as she desperately searches her mind for any other solution. She panics, realizing she might die before her term, as saintess is even over. Dietrich breaks the tension, suddenly asking if she plans to accept his brother's marriage proposal. As she denies any romantic feelings for Volkart, Dietrich points out that his brother offers the perfect, immediate solution. He suddenly grabs her hand, his intense gaze fixed on hers. Leaning over her on the sofa, he makes a stunning proposal. "Will you have a baby with me?" Completely shocked, she can only think his name as he holds her on the couch. His shocking question, "Will you have a baby with me?" hangs in the air. Disbelieving, she can only ask if he is joking. He leans in closer, his serious expression confirming he is not joking, as she stammers his title. Overwhelmed, she wonders if he's really going this far, just to save the saintess. He looks down at her, a silent and contemplative expression on his face. Lying beneath him, she stares up with wide, uncertain eyes. He pulls back and covers his face, apologizing and admitting he's worried about her. Calling his proposal a product of ego, he apologizes again, leaving her utterly confused. He turns away, conceding that his brother can surely make her happier than he can. She looks at him, completely taken aback by his sudden, heartbreaking resignation. She asks if he is truly okay with that, and his pained flinch reveals his true feelings. Suddenly, the brilliant light of the tide flower manifests around her hands. She wonders why the power is appearing now, since she hasn't received a revelation or helped anyone. Dietrich explains he thought she could suppress the stone's growth by avoiding good deeds. He concludes grimly that for her, this theory does not seem to hold true. Gasp. He covers his mouth, overcome with worry at the implications. He stands up, urgently telling Serena that time is of the essence if she wants to live. He delivers his final, desperate command, "Marry my brother. Then you'll be pregnant with his child," he says, completing the grim but life-saving plan. The scene transitions to a grand, sunlit cathedral. As Serena arrives at the temple, a priest notes her long absence. Priests gossip about a divine oracle excusing her absence and the rumors she spent the night at Dietrich's villa. Aware of the whispers, Serena walks through the hall, knowing she must invent a plausible excuse. Her mind flashes back to Dietrich's plea to marry his brother as she ponders his true intentions. She panics, wondering if she's considering Dietrich's proposal before forcing the impossible thought from her mind. Her thoughts are interrupted by the sudden appearance of the high priest. The high priest teases her about her active day and the convenient oracle, promising to visit her properly later. He pointedly brings up the commotion of her visit to Dietrich's villa, which she attempts to downplay. Flustered, she blushes and vehemently insists that nothing happened between them. The high priest explains that the king is now highly suspicious of Dietrich and concerned about their popular bond. He predicts the king will now move to force the marriage between her and Prince Volkart. Serena is stunned into silence by the king's impending action. Surrounded by priests, she feels lost and unsure of what to do next. The high priest informs her the temple wishes for her to complete her term, prompting her to think, "Speak of the devil." Her thoughts are interrupted by the arrival of Prince Volkart, who is accompanied by 2 young children. The high priest formally greets Prince Volkart, who acknowledges him in return. Volkart explains that the children he brought with him wish to express their gratitude to the saintess. Recognizing them, Serena smiles and says she is glad to hear they have recovered. The children enthusiastically thank her for saving them. The boy shyly explains that Prince Volkart was the one who told them she was their savior. Serena looks up in surprise at this revelation. As the children thank them both and leave, Volkart tells them to stay safe. The children look back, an idea sparkling between them. They imagine the prince and the saintess as a couple, much to Serena's imagined confusion. The children blurt out that the whole town is gossiping about the saintess marrying a prince, making Serena flustered. Volkart smiles wryly, admitting he doesn't know what the future holds. Looking pointedly at Serena, he adds that he certainly hopes he will be able to get married. The scene shifts to a quiet, sunlit garden in the temple grounds. Volkart apologizes for his forward comment, and a flustered Serena quickly says it's fine. Serena reflects that while Volkart is a good person, marrying him means Xavier will never be born. Volkart watches her, thinking there is something special between her and Dietrich. He tells her he wants to protect her, and asks if a marriage of convenience would be enough to do so. Serena is shocked by his suggestion of a marriage of convenience. She questions if a loveless marriage would satisfy him, but he replies that he never had the option of a free marriage anyway. Looking her directly in the eyes, he confesses, "I want to marry you, Serena." His direct confession leaves her wide-eyed and speechless. He asks if she knows why his father married Saintess Alicia, stating he will protect her from the king just as his father protected Alicia. Clutching her chest, Serena knows that protection was not the true reason. She reveals his father married Alicia to save her life by stopping the growth of the magic stone inside her. Volkart looks shocked, questioning if she means the dangerous magic stone. Serena explains that the magic stone near the heart grows with her power and can become life-threatening. With a hopeful smile, Volkart reveals there is one way to stop the stone's growth. Surprising Serena, they continue their walk through the temple grounds. Serena appears pained as she clutches her chest. Volkart looks on with a somber and concerned expression. She suddenly covers his mouth, stopping him from saying that his father married Saintess Alicia to have a child. Realizing he already knows the truth, she understands that a mere formal marriage will not be enough to save her. With a heavy heart, she looks down, feeling she has troubled him. He steels himself, acknowledging the grim reality that she must use her future family to survive. His resolve hardening, he declares, "I want you to live." Thud, he suddenly drops to one knee before her. Kneeling on the ground, he looks up at her and proposes once more. "Will you please marry me?" She stares down at the kneeling prince, taken aback by his earnest plea. A recruitment notice for translators, proofreaders, and editors is displayed. A promotional banner for the webcomic is shown. The romantic scene of the prince proposing in a garden of flowers is shown in full. Serena looks down at him, her expression a mixture of surprise and internal conflict. She remains silent, standing before the earnest, kneeling prince. Her mind races with the terrible choice. Marrying him saves her life, but erases Xavier's existence. TSK. A flicker of emotion crosses Volkart's face as he waits for her answer. With his hand outstretched, he begs her one last time. Please. Believing it's her only choice, Serena resolves to take his hand. Whump! She suddenly grabs a stunned Volkart, who whispers her name in surprise. Oosh. As she begins to fall, he calls her name again with alarm. She collapses against him, her face contorted in pain. Catching her, he frantically asks what's wrong, and if she's all right. Huff-ha! Gasping for breath, she's overwhelmed by the sudden onset of pain. Clutching her chest, she realizes with terror that the tightness and pain are unbearable. The scene transitions to the exterior of a grand, sunlit palace. Sometime later, Serena lies unconscious in a luxurious bed. Volkart anxiously asks the chief physician for an update, who replies that while she is stable, there's little more he can do. Leaning in, Volkart asks if it's true that a magic stone is embedded near a saintess' heart. The shocked physician asks how he knows, and Volkart reveals that Serena told him herself. The physician explains Serena's condition is identical to Lady Alicia's premarital symptoms, confirming the growing stone is pressing on her heart. Volkart is horrified as the physician gravely concludes that Serena's life is in danger. He desperately asks if there is any way to slow the stone's growth besides conceiving a child. Unfortunately, the physician confirms there are no other known methods, grimly stating that this is now a race against time. Volkart's expression hardens with grim resolve at the terrible news. He clenches his fist, angrily wondering why things had to come to this now. A dark, abstract panel marks a tense transition. The scene shifts to a beautiful seaside estate, bathed in the light of the setting sun. Gasp! Serena's eyes flutter open as she awakens. Volkart, sitting by her bed, gently asks if she is awake. Weakly, she says his name as he explains they are in the floral palace and reminds her she collapsed in the courtyard. As she sits up, she apologizes for worrying him, but he urges her not to overexert herself. He relays the physician's warning that her heart is under extreme strain and asks if this has happened before. Looking down, Serena admits that this is the first time. She realizes with dread that her magic stone is growing. Another attack could be fatal, and the tide flower will only make it worse. Shudder. Overcome with fear, she wraps her arms around herself in bed. Volkart gently embraces her, pleading with her not to bear this burden alone. He earnestly asks her to share her worries, offering to do anything he can to help. She looks up at him, moved by his sincerity as she thinks his name. Though she insists she could never use him, he gently replies that it's fine if it's for her sake. They gaze at each other in a moment of profound, silent understanding. A light blush on her cheeks, Serena turns her head slightly, her heart in turmoil. She steels her resolve, deciding this is the best path forward for the nation and for herself. The scene shifts to a grand castle overlooking a bridge at sunset. A long-haired nobleman expresses his shock, asking his aide if Volkart is truly making Lady Serena his wife. The nobleman, the king, confronts Volkart directly, who confirms that Serena has agreed to the marriage. Dressed in formal white attire, Volkart states that he wishes for the wedding to be held as soon as possible. The king reminds him that as a royal, he must follow the traditional procedures from engagement to marriage. He further stipulates that if Serena is to be queen, Volkart's own succession ceremony must come first. Volkart acknowledges the protocols, but reiterates his firm intention to proceed with the wedding immediately. A look of dawning comprehension crosses the king's face as he begins to understand. He pointedly asks Volkart if Lady Serena is showing the same symptoms as the former Saintess Alicia. The king asks Dietrich to explain the Saintess's condition, but the chief physician interjects, suggesting it would be best to brief His Majesty. The physician clasps his hands, apologizing and stating that he is forbidden to say anything more. Turning back to his son, the king again asks about Lady Alicia's symptoms, but Volkart cryptically replies it's better that he doesn't know. Volkart internally confirms that the king knows about the magic stone and questions why His Majesty is keeping it a secret. With a knowing smile, the king asks Volkart why he is in such a rush, suggesting such a joyous occasion deserves proper preparation. Volkart places a hand over his heart, his expression one of unwavering resolve. The king explains that Dietrich's supporters are growing, making an official union essential to deter them. Volkart bows his head, asking his father to consider the matter carefully. He reflects that the king must also want to prevent any connection between Dietrich and Serena. He further resolves that he personally wants to erase Dietrich's presence from Serena's life. The king agrees to the plan and states he will arrange an engagement announcement soon. With a slight smile, Volkart thanks His Majesty. The king reminds Volkart that Serena must fulfill her duty, as a saintess loses her power after bearing a child, which Volkart confirms he understands. Volkart places a hand over his heart, swearing to God he won't touch her until her duty is complete. A recruitment notice for scanulation staff is displayed. In a palace hallway, men discuss how Prince Volkart was suddenly declared the crown prince. The nobles gossip about the rumor that marrying the saintess secures the throne before one is shushed. Whoosh! A silver-haired man walks past, silencing the gossiping nobles. The silver-haired man, Dietrich, pauses with a cold and determined expression. The scene shifts to the exterior of a beautiful, ornate palace. Serena stands ready, dressed in an elegant white and blue gown. A blonde maid places a final accessory in her hair, telling her she looks wonderful, and Serena thanks her. As other maids finish adjusting her dress, Serena quietly agrees to their preparations. A young maid gasps, calling out to Lady Serena in surprise. The maid asks if she is truly marrying Prince Volkart, admitting she assumed Serena would be with Prince Dietrich, but the headmaid sharply reprimands her. The headmaid scolds the younger one for her disrespectful words, prompting a hurried apology. Serena smiles wryly to herself, realizing that is how people perceive her situation. The headmaid quietly explains that due to the suddenness of the engagement, people believe Serena is simply being used for convenience. With a reassuring smile, Serena tells her not to worry, as she has made her own decision. Her expression hardens with resolve, as she vows to at least try to be a good wife. Swoosh! White doves take flight from a castle tower, marking a transition. In the throne room, the court assembles and declares their obedience to the king's will. The king summons Volkart, who steps forward from his position beside Dietrich. Volkart kneels before the king on the steps of the throne. In the name of the King of Aleza, he officially appoints First Prince Volkart as the crown prince. Bowing his head, Volkart humbly accepts his new title. Clap, clap, clap. The assembled nobles applaud, congratulating the new crown prince Volkart. Dietrich offers his congratulations to the new crown prince. A formal portrait marks Volkart's official ascension to crown prince. Volkart and the king appear on a balcony to address the cheering crowd below. As Volkart waves, the crowd roars their support, shouting, "Long live the crown prince." From the crowd's perspective, the king and new crown prince stand proudly on the balcony. A young woman with long purple hair watches with delight, thinking this day has finally come for Volkart. She clasps her hands excitedly, realizing this means she is now the crown princess and will one day be queen. Volkart announces that he will now introduce his future wife to the people. The king adds that she will stand beside Volkart and eventually become the mother of the nation. Overjoyed, the purple-haired woman is certain the king is about to announce her name. A companion tells Diana to stop swaying, but she insists the king is about to call her name. The king announces the court saintess, Serena, leaving Diana utterly stunned and confused. Serena appears before the crowd, who murmur in surprise, calling out to the lady saintess. Diana's mind reels in disbelief at what she is hearing. Seething with rage, Diana thinks it's impossible that Serena is Volkart's fiancée. A vision shows Serena and Volkart standing happily together. Watching them, a blonde-haired man comments to a silent Dietrich that they suit each other. Dietrich looks startled, while the blonde man seems surprised by his own words. The blonde-haired man smiles, remarking that the current saintess is truly sinful. Dietrich wonders what could make his highness wear such an expression. The scene shifts to a grand, glittering, royal ballroom filled with nobles. Guests congratulate Crown Prince Volkart and Lady Serena on their engagement, saying they look wonderful together. The nobles celebrate the union, declaring Aleza's future secure with the saintess's protection. Volkart tells the crowd that while Serena is a saintess, he was drawn to her humanity. He continues his speech with a charming smile, admitting he proposed rather forcefully out of his desire for her. Flustered by his public confession, Serena stammers his title in surprise. The onlookers are delighted by his passionate and lovely confession. The magnificent chandeliers of the ballroom glitter, marking a slight passage of time. Serena steps out onto a balcony, feeling stifled by the party. She reflects on the difficult duties of a crown princess, from diplomacy to handling nobles. Seeing Dietrich drinking nearby, she muses that both princes have dealt with this pressure since childhood. Her expression is one of thoughtful concern. A nobleman asks Volkart why he is alone, and the prince explains Serena wasn't feeling well. He adds that she went outside for some fresh air. On the balcony, Dietrich quietly approaches Serena from behind. He asks why the star of the evening is hiding out there. She turns and pointedly asks what he is doing there himself. Thud, she gasps, shocked to see several empty wine bottles at his feet. Dietrich asks if she collapsed from chest pain again, and she quietly confirms it. She explains that Crown Prince Volkart was the one who helped her. Dietrich looks down with a pained expression, simply saying, "I see." Walking under the stars, he reveals his mother's diary, explains the chest pains and the saintess's duties. Serena is stunned to hear of Lady Alicia's diary and eagerly asks to read it. Dietrich says he can't take it out, but suggests she could come to his palace to read it. He immediately retracts the offer, telling her to forget it while taking another drink. Dietrich wears an expression of intense inner conflict. Serena looks at him with concern, questioning his sudden change. Volkart appears in the doorway, calling Serena's name and telling her it's time to go. He stops, seeing Dietrich leaning intimately close to Serena on the balcony. Volkart's face hardens as he watches them from the doorway. On the balcony, Dietrich gently embraces Serena from behind. He tenderly cups her face, looking into her eyes. A glowing, snowflake-like magic forms in the palm of his hand. He shows the magic to Serena, explaining they are tidal flowers, Startled, Serena looks away as Dietrich asks what is wrong. She looks toward the doors, explaining she sensed someone else was there. Inside, a nobleman greets His Highness Volkart. Count Eggsy and his wife congratulate the prince on the wonderful event, and Volkart thanks them. The count's wife notes he looks unwell, but Volkart dismisses it as nervousness. The woman congratulates him again on his engagement, and he offers a strained smile of thanks. On the balcony, Dietrich points out that the tidal flowers are changing color. Serena examines the flowers, noticing they've turned a pale greenish color. Dietrich confirms this phenomenon was recorded in his mother's diary. She wonders aloud if the color changes as the magic stone grows, and he seems to agree. Swoosh, Serena realizes her tidal flowers are pale blue-green, not yet the jade green of a fully grown stone. She asks Dietrich if Volkart knows about the magic stones, and he confirms she told him when he proposed. She realizes Volkart's actions were based on his knowledge of her condition. Serena affirms her conclusion with quiet resolve. An announcement confirms that she will be moving to Volkart's palace this evening. Serena reflects on the warning that she would die if she failed to conceive. A man's hand gently takes hers. Dietrich holds her hand on the balcony, gazing at the magical flowers she created. Looking down, he quietly decides to keep the flowers for himself. Serena looks up at him, surprised but agreeing. Thoughts of saving the saintess swirl in the starry night. Dietrich earnestly tells a shocked Serena that he just wants her to live. He urges her to find a way to stop the growth of the magic stone. Dietrich firmly grasps both of her hands, his expression intense. Serena desperately asks if the tidal flower's wish-granting power could be used to prevent any more saintesses from being born. Looking to the sky, she hopes this could be the way to end it all. Angrily pulling his hand away, Dietrich questions if she intends to remain childless and just keep producing tidal flowers until her hands are full. He turns away, pained, unable to finish his sentence. Serena watches him, her own expression unwavering. Dietrich apologizes softly and then asks if she is confused about her feelings. She turns to him and firmly says no. With renewed determination, Serena declares that marrying Volkart was her own decision and vows to be a good wife. As they leave the balcony, Volkart instructs Lady Serena to go to the palace ahead of him. He smiles, explaining he has unfinished business, and asking her to wait for him in his palace. Serena is flustered by his request, but stammers her agreement. Volkart closes his eyes, a faint, satisfied smile on his face. He entrusts Serena to 3 of his guards, who enthusiastically accept their duty. From a balcony above, Dietrich silently watches Serena and her escort depart. He takes a sip from his glass, his thoughts hidden. A woman in a red cloak walks purposefully through a palace corridor. Dietrich's eyes widen in alarm as he recognizes the approaching figure. Serena and her 3 guards make their way toward the entrance of a grand palace building. She steels herself, realizing her life with Volkart will forge a new path, different from the novels. A sharp voice halts their progress, demanding to know where they are going. Diana appears before them, her face contorted with rage as she asks if Serena is truly going to Volkart's palace. One of the guards calmly explains that they are following Crown Prince Volkart's direct orders. Diana erupts, calling it impossible and ranting that Serena is an unmarried woman who spent the night at Dietrich's palace, forbidding her from entering Volkart's home. The blonde guard steps forward, placing himself between Diana and Serena. He tells Lady Serena to step aside, as Diana, surrounded by a dark aura, accuses her of being a trickster trying to manipulate both princes. Pulsing with purple magic, Diana angrily questions if the knight's loyalty to Volkart is just for show. Serena gasps, realizing Diana is using seduction magic, as Diana maniacally insists the knights must protect Volkart from her. Commanded by Diana to uncover Serena's true identity, 2 knights with glowing eyes seize a startled Serena. Diana sneers that the Crown Prince's bride must be pure, as the enchanted blonde knight vows to confirm it, asking if stripping Serena will reveal her true nature. The enthralled blonde knight draws a dagger, his eyes glowing with purple light. Slash! The dagger tears through the fabric of Serena's dress at her shoulder. A hand reaches for her torn dress, and Serena flinches in shock. Whoosh! A powerful blast of green wind magic violently repels the knights. Serena recognizes the wind magic as an unseen voice repeats the demand, "What are you doing?" While the blonde knight whimpers on the floor. Dietrich stands ready with his sword drawn, surrounded by swirling magic. As Serena cries out his name, Serena rushes to his side, pleading for him to put his sword away, and explaining the knights were manipulated by Diana's enchantment. Dietrich turns his cold fury on Diana, demanding to know what she thinks she is doing. Diana raves that Serena is greedy, proclaiming her own lifelong love for Volkart and her destiny to be his queen. In a brief flashback, a younger Diana and Volkart sit together as she screams about how hard she has worked to become queen for him. Volkart suddenly appears, draping a cloak over Serena's shoulders and asking Diana what, exactly, she has done for his sake. Standing protectively beside Serena, he scathingly asks Diana if putting her ego first and nearly getting someone killed is what she calls working hard for Volk. Diana realizes, with dawning horror, that he knows she poisoned the ocean to manipulate the Oracle. As she recoils, his voice declares, "Not anymore," and Dietrich appears in a flash of green magic, vowing to protect Serena. Diana stares back, her face a mask of pure terror. An oppressive darkness seems to crash down around her. Surrounded by swirling magic, Dietrich repeats his promise that he will not let Diana hurt Serena again. Diana is stunned into silence by his sudden, protective intervention. Serena looks on from the side, her own expression one of surprise. Whoosh! Volkart arrives with his guards, demanding to know what is happening. Seeing her brother, Diana's expression shifts to one of hopeful relief as she calls out to Volk. She runs to Volkart, desperately pleading for help from both him and Diet as he murmurs her name. Dietrich glares ahead, his expression cold and unforgiving. Serena watches the unfolding confrontation with a worried look. Volkart's face darkens with a terrible understanding. He sternly asks Diana if it's true, and she stammers a frantic denial. The three knights, now free from the enchantment, kneel before Volkart and apologize profusely. They lament in shame that they harmed the very saintess they were sworn to protect. Diana argues that it couldn't be helped, claiming Volkart was forced into the marriage and couldn't stop her otherwise. With a sweet smile, she insists she was only thinking of his well-being, as a royal should choose his own partner. Volkart coldly demands her blessing, stating he chose Serena of his own will and wants to live his life with her. Serena looks up, taken aback by his firm declaration. That's a lie. Diana screams, insisting that Serena is deceiving him. Consumed by a furious purple aura, she rants that her love for Volk is unmatched, but he calmly orders his men to take her to the dungeon. As the guards seize her, Volkart promises a severe punishment. While Diana screams that he has been deceived, Volkart turns his back on his struggling sister, his attention now solely on Lady Serena. He asks if she is all right, and though she insists she is fine, she flinches in pain, not fooling him. He closes his eyes in regret, blaming himself for not being there to protect her. Serena gently reminds him that his duties called him away. She explains that ultimately it was His Highness Dietrich who saved her, causing Volkart's expression to harden. With a faint, strained smile, Volkart repeats Dietrich's name. Serena looks around, realizing Dietrich has vanished, and makes a mental note to thank him tomorrow. Thump! Volkart suddenly pulls her into a tight embrace, catching her by surprise. Elsewhere, Dietrich kneels alone with his sword, a somber and silent figure. The scene shifts to a magnificent, moonlit palace estate. Inside, a butler and a host of maids welcome the Crown Prince and Lady Serena. Standing beside Serena, Volkart offers his thanks to the assembled staff. The head butler announces that everything has been prepared with the utmost care and offers to show them around. He leads the couple down a grand, polished hallway, stopping before a large door. The butler announces their rooms for the night, much to Serena's confusion. The door opens to a lavish suite, which Volkart explains is typically reserved for foreign ambassadors. The butler smiles brightly, clarifying that the room is for just the two of them. Serena and Volkart share an awkward, surprised glance at the implication. They sit stiffly across from each other at a table laden with sweets, Volkart apologizing for the situation. Flustered, Serena realizes this is meant to be their wedding night and wonders if he arranged this, knowing her life depends on it. Volkart sighs, concluding that the Chamberlain's intention is to create a rumor. He explains to Serena that it's a political move to show how close they are before the wedding. Serena understands they want to create the appearance of them spending the night together to quell public suspicion. Looking him in the eye, she bluntly asks if he is accusing her of having an affair with Dietrich. Volkart apologizes for offending her and offers to have the Chamberlain unlock the door. His mind flashes back to the image of Dietrich holding Serena intimately on the balcony. Serena firmly states that there is nothing going on between her and Dietrich. Serena explains his kindness stems from the saintess's sad fate. Swish. She turns back to Volkart, who calls her name in question. She declares her primary goal in the palace is to stop the magic stone's growth. Volkart gently takes her hands, promising not to rush things. He closes his eyes with a satisfied, gentle smile. Taking a bath, Serena reflects that Prince Volkart is a good man. Splish. She settles into the water, feeling resolute. Wrapping herself in a towel, she vows to be a good wife before getting changed. Unbeknownst to her, a shirtless Volkart is in the adjoining room. He walks through the room calling her name, wondering what's happening. Blushing, Serena presses against a door, asking for something to cover herself with. She stands flustered, now wearing a simple white nightgown. Volkart smiles warmly and tells her no, he won't give her anything to cover up with. She tells him to rest while she goes to take a bath after him, and she stammers her agreement. Facing the single large bed, she realizes they of course only have one. She concludes they won't be doing that tonight, but is still flustered by the shared bed. Deciding to take the sofa instead, she sits down wearily. Utterly exhausted, she immediately falls asleep on the sofa. Her last thoughts drift to her engagement with Crown Prince Volkart. She thinks about her upcoming marriage, trying to reassure herself. Suddenly, she wakes up with a gasp as Volkart leans over her. Startled, she sees His Highness Volkart carrying her through the room. He holds her securely in his arms, her confusion growing. Looking down at her, he apologizes for waking her. He explains he can't let her sleep on the sofa, dismissing her concern for him. She sits up on the bed, looking surprised and uncertain. He presents a solution. They'll use cushions to divide the bed. He wishes her good night, and she shyly returns the sentiment. She watches him, surprised that he's already fallen asleep. Respecting his patience, she gently pulls the covers over him. They lie back to back in the grand bed, separated by a line of pillows. Serena lies awake, her eyes wide as she is unable to sleep. On the other side of the pillows, Volkart is also wide awake. The scene shifts to a grand, moonlit estate at night. Whoosh! Dietrich steps out onto a balcony, the wind blowing through the open doors. He stands alone in the night, his expression grim and contemplative. The sun rises over the magnificent palace estate the next morning. Serena's long, silver hair is spread across the pillow as she sleeps. She awakens to a voice wishing her a good morning. Volkart, now in his formal red and white uniform, smiles down at her. She sits up with a start, remembering she stayed at his palace. She suddenly realizes the implication of the morning service. Volkart explains that a priest called to cancel the service. Volkart notes, with a slight blush, that the Chamberlain's rumors are spreading effectively. He calls her name, getting her flustered attention. He leans in, suggesting they have breakfast together since they have time. Maids enter the room, setting up an elaborate breakfast in bed. The table is laden with an assortment of beautiful cakes and pastries. Volkart smiles, suggesting they eat while the breakfast is still warm. He extends a hand to Serena, who looks up at him with gentle surprise. In a romantic portrait, Volkart stands protectively behind Serena amidst a shower of flowers. Two maids carrying trays share a look of concern in the background. Now dressed formally, Serena walks with bodyguards, feeling awkward and anticipating the priest will tease her. She steels her expression with quiet determination. Following behind His Highness Dietrich and his men, she approaches the grand estate. She recognizes the familiar silhouette of His Highness Dietrich ahead. Dietrich's profile is sharp and serious as he walks. Zap! Serena jumps in surprise as Dietrich suddenly turns to face her. She stammers a greeting, thanking His Highness Dietrich for saving her life last night. Dietrich coolly dismisses her thanks and asks why she's going to work at lunchtime. Flustered, Serena waves her hands frantically, insisting she's fine and that absolutely nothing happened last night. Her mind races with the thought that both Prince Volkart and Prince Dietrich hoped for this rumor. When Dietrich asks what's wrong, she quickly deflects, asking why he's here instead. He explains that he has been summoned as a person of interest. A shocking realization dawns. Diana's hearing is happening now. As Dietrich stands for the hearing, Serena learns the investigation will focus on last night's incident, especially the Oracle's manipulation. She resolves that as a key party, she must be there. Dietrich correctly guesses her intentions, but tells her his brother, Volkart, would not allow her to attend. Serena stands her ground, her expression unwavering amidst a field of flowers. Dietrich pauses for a moment, looking back at her in silence. Turning away, he bids her farewell and departs with his men. Serena watches him go, her thoughts filled with his name. She finds his detached attitude strange, as if yesterday's events meant nothing to him. The scene shifts to the imposing, sunlit facade of the royal court. Thump! The grand doors swing open to reveal Diana being escorted by two guards. Diana stares forward, her expression a mask of cold defiance. Brought before the throne, she desperately pleads her innocence, blaming everything on Serena. From a balcony above, Volkart and Dietrich observe the proceedings silently. A blonde-haired man informs Diana that her magic-sealed restraints nullify her charm magic, leaving her stunned. The king glares down from his throne, demanding to know if her oracle was a lie as Diana flinches in terror. He declares that manipulating a sacred oracle is the most grievous sin in the kingdom of Aleza. Overwhelmed by fear, Diana can only whisper, "Your Majesty." Volkart watches his sister's judgment with a somber, unyielding gaze. Elsewhere, Serena and her guards walk along an indoor pool in the palace. She wonders aloud if Diana's hearing might already be over. Zap! She turns in surprise as a man calls out to the saintess. Her eyes widen as she recognizes the priest standing before her. The priest smiles, informing her that Lady Diana has been sentenced to indefinite confinement. He cheerfully lists her crimes: treason, injuring the crown prince, and assaulting a saintess, before revealing her exile to Kafria Island. The priest cheekily adds that she can now flirt with Prince Volkart freely, causing Serena to blush. Mortified, Serena mishears flirting as fun, leaving the priest momentarily confused by her reaction. The priest suddenly shushes her, turning his attention to the nearby woods. Peeking through the trees, he wonders what two people are doing in such a secluded place. In a clearing, they see Prince Volkart and Prince Dietrich standing together in a gazebo. Serena looks on, startled by the unexpected sight. Her mind shouts their names in surprise. The two brothers stand opposite each other, locked in a serious, private conversation. In a frantic flashback, Diana is dragged away, screaming for Volk to save her. Back in the present, a guard approaches the two princes by a golden door, addressing Dietrich by name. Prince Volkart approaches Dietrich, stating he has a question for him. He turns to his brother, insisting they speak alone. Dietrich meets his gaze with a cool, stoic expression. The two brothers face each other in a sun-drenched garden gazebo. Dietrich stands silently, listening to what his brother has to say. Volkart confronts him directly, asking what he and Serena were doing on the balcony. Dietrich feigns ignorance about the balcony, explaining she simply appeared while he was having a drink. Volkart glares at him, remaining silent and unconvinced. "You touched her, right?" Volkart accuses him intensely. Dietrich looks away, claiming he can't remember because he was drinking. Volkart sternly warns him that Serena is his future wife and forbids him from seeing her alone. Dietrich smirks, remarking that she's really loved, which infuriates Volkart, who grabs him and angrily asks what's so funny, insisting he's just protecting her. Dietrich calmly reminds him that she accepted the proposal, asking what the problem is, leaving Volkart speechless. Dietrich explains he wanted to save the saintess to avoid a tragedy like their mother's, so he suggested she marry Volkart and get pregnant quickly. Finding the irony funny, he admits he tried to convince himself it was for the best, remembering Serena's pained and happy expressions. His thoughts culminate in a stunning realization: he is in love with Serena. An image of Serena appears amidst thorny flowers, clutching a red gem. Elsewhere, the blonde-haired priest abruptly grabs Serena's arm, his expression suddenly serious. Volkart questions if Dietrich understands his own words, declaring Serena his fiancée and ordering him to cease all unnecessary interactions, to which Dietrich replies he's already given his advice. Volkart warns Dietrich not to mislead Serena for her own sake, as Dietrich stands by with a pained look. Zap! The priest calls out to Serena, startling her. He apologizes for rushing her, and she gives him a kind, reassuring smile. The priest's tone turns cold as he tells her to remember her position as saintess, regardless of her actions. He points out that her own deceptions are a betrayal similar to Diana's, shocking Serena, but he agrees to let it slide since it saves lives. He reminds her of her sacred duty to lead and save the people as a divine aura surrounds her. She reflects on her simple wish to retire, now realizing that future is impossible. Overwhelmed, she panics, crying out that she just wants to live her life. The priest looks on with a somber, knowing expression. The scene shifts to the exterior of a grand, domed building. Serena approaches the entrance, explaining to the guards she has permission to enter, and they recognize her as the saintess. A guard holds open the ornate door, inviting her to come in. A blonde-haired man asks a guard about other guests, and the guard confirms one person with special permission has already entered. Serena gasps in awe as she steps into the lavishly decorated hall. She stands before the entrance to a magnificent, multi-story library. The blonde-haired man from the hearing formally presents her with a royal library access card. He explains that the library contains records on the royal family and saintesses not found in the temple, which may help her current troubles. Serena looks at the card, considering the potential help it represents. Determined to find answers and gain confidence, she resolves to learn more about the omens concerning her role. Inside the library, she sees Prince Dietrich browsing a bookshelf. Dietrich turns, his gaze locking with hers from across the aisle. She is momentarily stunned, recalling his confession of love. Startled, Serena apologizes for the interruption as Dietrich calls her name. As she walks away, he assumes she's there to find a book. She confirms she is, trying to convince herself to act normal despite her awkwardness. Dietrich calmly directs her to the shelf containing the book she needs. When she asks why he's there, he explains he's researching the tidal flowers, which have materials stored in the royal library. Reading aloud, Dietrich discovers the tidal flower was meant to protect the saintess before it was taken by the king, prompting Serena to wonder about its specific purpose. He suddenly reaches toward her, asking if she has a fever. Zap! His hand gently touches her forehead, checking her temperature. He holds her face gently, the two of them standing intimately close in the quiet library. Thump! Dietrich gently touches Serena's face, startling her. Elsewhere, a nervous aide informs a guard that His Highness Volkart is summoning someone back immediately. Realizing the summons is for her, Serena agrees to leave at once. In a fleeting memory, Dietrich holds Serena close from behind in the library. He embraces her tightly as she clutches a book, their moment private and intense. The romantic atmosphere lingers like a soft, pearlescent dream. A man calls out for Lady Serena, urging her to return immediately. His voice echoes through the library, interrupting Dietrich's embrace. Wham! Startled, Serena pulls back as Dietrich whispers her name. She struggles against his hold, flustered and begging him to wait. He firmly holds her chin, his gaze intense as he repeats her name. Dietrich begins to speak, trying to tell her something important. Overwhelmed, Serena pushes against his hands, her expression pained. "Please don't say anything," she begs, unable to hear his confession. Swish! She breaks free and flees as he calls her name in desperation. Dietrich watches her go, a quiet sigh of defeat escaping him. The scene shifts to the exterior of a magnificent sunlit manor. Serena announces her return to an aide waiting inside the foyer. Prince Volkart apologizes for the urgent summons, explaining the king has arranged a dinner party. He informs her of an important private discussion, urging her to prepare quickly as Serena questions the sudden event. Noticing her dazed expression, Volkart asks if something is wrong. She quickly recovers, promising to get ready as he quietly agrees. Night falls over the grand, sparkling castle. Prince Volkart and Serena are formally announced as they arrive at the dinner. They enter to find the king waiting at the head of a long table, with Dietrich already seated. The king raises his glass, formally welcoming them. Volkart offers his apologies for their tardiness. Dietrich remains silent and stoic, his eyes closed. The king dismisses all the servants for a private conversation. The staff bows and exits the room, promising to be on call. As the room clears, Serena watches with a sense of anticipation. The king turns to Serena, inquiring about her life at Volkart's palace. Serena smiles politely, assuring him she has been treated with the utmost care. The king's thoughts drift to the rumor that she and Volkart spent the night together. A flashback shows Volkart carrying a sleeping Serena to her bed. He holds her gently in his arms, his expression tender. Their faces are close in an intimate, quiet moment. He lays her down on the bed, still holding her protectively. The memory is framed by flowers, depicting a scene of chaste care. In her sleep, Serena's expression is troubled and silent. Volkart looks down at her, noticing the pained look on her face. She insists she isn't faking her feelings, though her words lack conviction. He gently takes her hand, observing that she's trembling and forcing herself. Volkart admits that forcing intimacy would only lead to regret for them both, asking if she agrees. He cups her face, his voice soft but determined, as he declares he wants her heart too. Serena stares back, stunned into silence by his unexpected confession. In the present, maids bustle about with cheerful energy. They work on an elaborate wedding gown, deciding to enlarge the petticoat. Serena stands passively while being fitted, weakly agreeing that the lace is nice. Her maids, however, are absolutely giddy with excitement for the upcoming wedding. A vision of Serena appears in a beautiful wedding dress. She questions her resolve after deciding to marry Prince Volkart. Bound by symbolic thorns, she vows to stop the magic stone and her doubts. Elsewhere, Prince Volkart expresses shock and anger. An aide informs the king of a new facility on Monero Island, startling Volkart. As the aide explains the territorial conflict with Leerheim, the king dismisses the issue, though Volkart urges caution. The king declares the island belongs to Aleza and threatens to crush Leerheim with the saintess's power. Horrified, Volkart accuses the king of planning to use the saintess as a weapon of war against the goddess's will. Volkart questions if Dietrich will cooperate, but the king reveals Dietrich is relinquishing his naval command to reject a different marriage. A promotional banner showcases a collage of characters from other series. The scene transitions to the exterior of a luxurious manor. Serena walks with regal composure through a brightly lit hall. A brown-haired aide thanks her for her hard work, and she politely returns the sentiment. He offers her a special tea selected by the prince, which she agrees sounds wonderful. As she walks away, observers gossip about how fortunate she is to be so deeply loved by Prince Volkart. Escorted by 2 guards, Serena proceeds down a grand hallway. A tender memory of Volkart's touch from a recent night flashes through her mind. She reflects on his constant, thoughtful care and how he has woven himself into her life. A guard informs her he will wait outside her room in case she needs him. Pat! She closes her door, a small, pleasant smile on her face. Alone, she contemplates her new life, a stark contrast to the novel and her enviable marriage. Reclining on a chaise lounge, she considers the possibility of slowly getting used to it all. Her thoughts are suddenly interrupted by a strange, glowing light. She looks down in shock as magical sea blossoms appear in her hands. As the blossoms grow brighter, she fears the magic stone is growing again. Surrounded by darkness, she steels her resolve, wondering if she should report the change in the sea blossoms to Prince Dietrich. A vision of Dietrich's stoic face appears. Knock, knock. A sudden sound at the door startles her from her thoughts. A voice from outside apologizes for disturbing the saintess while she rests. Flustered, she permits them to enter, wondering why someone from the royal palace is here. The scene shifts to the exterior of a large, ornate church. Inside, Serena and her entourage stand before the blonde priest and his attendants. The priest greets her, asking what seems to be the matter. Flanked by her guards, Serena stands with a serious expression. She informs the priest that a royal decree has arrived. The decree commands her to receive a divine revelation in 7 days. The priest tells her that as the Grand Saintess, she needs no special preparation and should just rest. Serena worries internally, realizing she has little time left, and fears her heart can't endure the stone's growth from another revelation. A promotional announcement displays several characters from different stories. The priest leads her into a dark, hidden room lined with portraits. Startled by the sight, she questions what these pictures are. She realizes with dawning unease that they are portraits. The full scope of the room is revealed to be a vast hall of portraits, which she notes resembles an altar. Whoosh! A candelabra on a nearby chest ignites, casting a warm glow. Her attention is drawn to the chest, and she wonders why it's there. The blonde priest smiles knowingly, telling her to go ahead and open it. Gasp! Serena hesitantly lifts the lid of the wooden chest. Inside, she finds a collection of brilliantly glowing magic stones of various colors. In horror, she looks from the stones to the portraits, making a terrifying connection. The priest confirms her suspicion, explaining this is the storage room for the magic stones of past saintesses. In utter shock, Serena realizes the temple has been extracting magic stones from deceased saintesses. The blonde priest dismisses her horror, explaining that saintesses fulfill their duties, live out their lives, and are then honorably buried. He gestures toward a grand mausoleum and graveyard, continuing that a procedure is performed to extract the stone from their bodies. This extraction, he claims, is to mourn them, but Serena questions if the saintesses truly lived out their full lives. Serena connects the dots, realizing they died naturally unless a divine revelation forced their magic stone to grow, and wonders why the goddess would create such a system. The priest explains that the saintess's proof grows into a magic stone, absorbing the host's power to allow even commoners to use spells. He holds a golden magic stone, stating the temple manages them after the saintesses die to prevent misuse. Serena asks if saintesses were never meant to be sacrifices, and the priest confirms they were supposed to return to normal lives. He adds that while most saintesses were unaware of the stones, cracks have begun appearing in this long-standing system. The problem, he says, is the recent appearance of saintesses like her, whose magic stones grow with alarming speed. He elaborates that over the past century, more saintesses lost their lives, prompting the king to investigate and discover the magic stones within them. Serena looks on with concern, asking which king made this discovery. The priest confirms it was the current King Ferdinand, as a flashback shows a younger, ruthless king and a terrified pink-haired saintess. The scene transitions to the exterior of a stately manor. Inside, Duke Basil holds his pipe and asks a white-haired man if he's being serious. Dietrich confirms his intentions. He will drag King Ferdinand down and put his brother on the throne. The Duke, identifying himself as Dietrich's grandfather, refuses to support the plan, but Dietrich insists he has no desire to be king. Dietrich argues that Ferdinand's plan to use the saintess's power for military expansion must be stopped. The Duke counters, accusing Dietrich of hypocrisy for using his mother Alicia's magic stone to empower the navy. Bathed in a sorrowful purple light, Dietrich remains silent and resolute. His hand clutches a brightly glowing purple magic stone. Dietrich gazes at the stone, his expression filled with grim determination. The Duke recalls how a young Prince Dietrich clung to his mother Alicia's magic stone even in sleep, terrified of losing it. Dietrich admits to himself that he is hidden behind his position and relied too much on his mother's memory. He declares with newfound resolve that he will seal the magic stone. Furthermore, he vows to seal all of Ferdinand's hidden stones and abolish the saintess system entirely. This, he states, is his offering to the saintess. Dietrich's thoughts burn with rage as he recalls Ferdinand's cruelty to his mother, vowing that the burden of governance will no longer fall on the saintesses. Squeeze! The Duke's hand tightens on his pipe, agreeing that the nobility should have borne the weight placed upon the saintesses. Convinced, the Duke promises to persuade the nobles in Parliament to support Ferdinand's removal if Prince Volkart abolishes the system. Dietrich looks toward his grandfather, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Crack, the two men shake hands, sealing their pact. The Duke puffs on his pipe, admitting he once hoped to see his own grandson on the throne. Dietrich pulls his hood over his head, lamenting that while he claims his cause is for the country, he's just a fool running to save one woman. Whoosh! He departs into the rainy night as the Duke watches from above. In a rain-soaked forest, two cloaked figures meet by a waiting horse. A blue-haired aide asks about the meeting's outcome, and Dietrich confirms it went splendidly. The aide delivers urgent news. A royal decree for the divine oracle will be issued in 7 days. Hearing this, Dietrich announces a change of plans and declares he's heading to his brother's villa at once. Hiya. He mounts his horse, determined to hurry. Clip-clop, he gallops through the rain, terrified that Serena's life is in danger if she receives another oracle. Meanwhile, Serena places a cloth-wrapped bundle onto a table in her room. She looks at a glowing jar in her hands, still surprised that Dietrich entrusted her with the precious sea blossoms. Examining the contents, she wonders if gathering just a few more blossoms would be enough to purify the magic stone in her heart. Her resolve falters as she realizes saving herself isn't the same as saving the institution of the saintess, and the blossoms were meant for the people. Conflicted and uncertain, she feels she cannot use the blossoms for her own survival. Her thoughts drift back to something the priest had said to her. She recalls the priest's cryptic words about erasing the magic stone. She has an epiphany. He meant erasing all magic stones from the world, which would mean no more saintesses would ever have to suffer. Realizing the massive implications, she knows she must tell Prince Dietrich immediately. She decides to tell Prince Volkart first before approaching Prince Dietrich. An ornate royal carriage arrives, heralding Prince Volkart's return. Upon hearing the news, Serena excitedly rushes out to greet him. She hurries down the brightly lit corridor, eager to see him. Ah! A thought suddenly causes her to stop in her tracks. Her attention is drawn to a closed, ornate door down the hall. Reaching the door, she calls out to the prince and apologizes for the intrusion. She enters the room to find a cloaked figure explaining she needs to talk. The man turns, revealing himself to be Prince Dietrich, much to her shock. Completely bewildered, she wonders why he is here. Dietrich explains he came secretly to see his brother, adding that he also needed to speak with her. He asks about her health, and she quietly reassures him that she is fine. Her mind flashes back to the dinner party, where Prince Volkart publicly accepted their engagement. She silently wonders about his other political engagement, feeling it isn't her place to ask. Dietrich calls her name, breaking her from her thoughts as a faint magic glows from her. His gaze narrows as he notices the glowing sea blossoms tucked in her hair. Suddenly, another figure appears directly behind Serena. Startled, she is pulled back into the arms of a furious Prince Volkart. Holding her protectively, Volkart glares at his brother, reminding him of his warning. Dietrich looks on in disbelief, uttering his brother's title. Volkart holds Serena tightly, angrily demanding to know what Dietrich was about to do. A promotional banner showcases characters from other series. Volkart glares at his brother, demanding an explanation for his actions. The atmosphere is thick with tension as Dietrich faces his brother, who holds Serena close. Held tightly, Serena looks back at Dietrich, completely confused by the situation. Dietrich explains that he was merely trying to remove a tidal flower from her hair. Surprised, Serena notices the faint glow of a flower near her ear. She confirms it's true, holding the now brightly glowing flower in her palm. A swirl of green energy emanates from the flower as Volkart silently watches. Volkart recognizes the flower's advanced jade green color and furiously demands to know why Dietrich is in his room. Dietrich calmly states he entered through a back way and tells his brother to confirm with the chamberlain. Serena quickly explains that she had entered the room herself, believing Volkart had returned. Volkart's anger fades as he turns his attention to Serena, gently caressing her cheek. She looks up at the prince, flustered by his sudden tenderness. Dietrich watches the intimate moment between them with a grim expression. In a moment of clarity, Serena blurts out, asking if they are truly dethroning Ferdinand. Volkart confirms that dethroning the king was his brother's plan from the start. Dietrich vows to have the king dethroned before the oracle is received to prevent Serena from undergoing it again. Shocked, Serena asks Volkart if he is trying to start a revolution. He reveals the king intends to turn the oracle into a public ceremony. To Serena's astonishment, Volkart elaborates that he just heard at the palace that all the lords will be invited. Serena questions the purpose of such a public spectacle for a sacred, private rite. Volkart explains the king seeks the goddess's blessing for a territorial expansion across the continent. The revelation horrifies Serena, as she realizes the king is planning to start a war. Recalling the novel's plot, Serena panics over the impending war, but Dietrich sees it as the perfect opportunity. Volkart and Serena both look toward Dietrich, stunned by his declaration. Dietrich declares the ceremony is the perfect stage to force the king to abdicate in 7 days. He explains they can use the king's blatant warmongering to win the Lord's support for Volkart. Volkart expresses skepticism, arguing that the king won't yield so easily and that they need a better plan. Dietrich passionately argues that this is their only chance to gain the people's support and avoid bloodshed. Volkart argues that even if they dethrone the king, Serena's magic stone won't disappear, stunning Dietrich. In the grand room, Volkart expresses his frustration as Serena watches from the couch. Both Volkart and Dietrich recognize the contents with a jolt: tidal flowers. Dietrich asks where she got so many, and Serena explains she received them from a priest at the temple. She continues, stating that despite asking about their use, the amount she has is still not enough. Volkart suggests that if they combine her flowers with the ones that recently appeared, Dietrich suddenly notices a glow from Serena's chest and asks what's wrong. A green light emanates from Serena's chest, surprising her as she realizes her magic stone is glowing. Volkart rushes to her side, asking if she's all right, and she reassures him she feels nothing. Holding her hand, Volkart identifies the glow as the magic stone. Dietrich watches grimly, confirming that her magic stone is indeed glowing. A chilling narration reveals that every saintess in this state has died within 10 days, horrifying both Serena and Volkart. Alone in another room, Serena stands pensively before a fireplace. A bright green light shines from her chest. Looking in the mirror, Serena confirms to herself that the magic stone in her heart is glowing. Surrounded by thorny roses, she realizes she only has 10 days left, but resolves that it's just enough time for Dietrich's plan. The dark, thorny imagery intensifies, reflecting her grim determination. Wham! Serena returns to the room, where Dietrich calls her name, and she thanks Prince Volkart for letting her use the restroom. She privately notes that, as expected, the area near her heart was glowing. Dietrich urgently tells her to use the tidal flowers now, certain they finally have enough. Serena refuses, declaring she will use the flowers to erase not just her stone, but all magic stones. Her bold declaration leaves both brothers speechless. She explains that she wants to erase every magic stone, including Ferdinand's, to repay the saintesses who entrusted her with the flowers. Her thoughts reveal a problem. Erasing the stones now would alert Ferdinand and could cause the oracle ceremony to be cancelled. Realizing she's right, Dietrich backtracks, agreeing they must find another way. Serena smiles gently and apologizes for the complication. She asks them to trust her, insisting her plan will work despite the risks. Dietrich yields but makes her promise to erase her magic stone the moment the king is brought down. Turning away, he walks toward the door. Wham! He punches the wall in frustration and curses under his breath. He internally admits the truth. He wants to prioritize Serena's life above all else. His thoughts darken as he realizes that if she gets rid of the stone, she can't marry his brother and secure the lineage, and he despises himself for the selfish thought. Dietrich storms down the long, empty hall. A promotional banner is displayed. Dietrich's voice echoes, repeating his demand that Serena promise to erase the stone after the king falls. Serena clutches her chest, thinking about his harsh words. Realizing she offended him, she looks down as Volkart tells her he understands his brother's anger. Volkart laments the situation, wishing they had more time. He thinks that with more time for her feelings and to stop the stone's growth, she wouldn't be in such danger. He looks down at Serena as the magic stone continues to glow from her chest. Serena apologizes, wishing she could have responded to His Highness's feelings sooner. Prince Volkart gently tells her not to apologize. He kneels before her, explaining that their situation is part of a larger destiny for the prosperity of Aleza. Volkart remains kneeling before standing Serena. Flustered, Serena begs the prince to stand, insisting she doesn't deserve such an honor. Taking her hand, Volkart confesses he treats her this way because he's attracted to her. Serena stares back, completely stunned by his sudden confession. He rises and declares his plan. After dethroning Ferdinand, he will become king, and she quietly agrees. Holding both her hands, he smiles and tells her that she will be his queen. As they walk away, Serena reflects on the wedding that will follow his coronation, marveling at how quickly everything has happened since their engagement yesterday. Prince Volkart presents Serena with a small red box as her magic stone glows. He opens it, revealing a beautiful, delicate ring. He explains he'd wanted to give it to her after the ceremony. Taking her hand, he softly calls her name, Serena. His gaze is filled with a gentle and determined affection. He begins to slide the gleaming ring onto her finger. Serena looks down, utterly surprised by his gesture. Her thoughts race as she processes what this means: marriage to His Highness. Her brilliant blue eyes widen in shock and disbelief. He pauses, pulling the ring away before it's fully on her finger. Serena questions him as he explains that if it's possible to delete the magic stone, she won't have to hurry into marriage and pregnancy. Calling her a sincere and kind person, he smiles and says he will stick to his decision. He gently places the ring into her open palm instead of on her finger. He tells Serena he wants her to wear the ring, after she's no longer a saintess. With a knowing smile, he asks her to put it on her own finger then. Completely flustered, Serena clutches her chest as her magic stone glows brightly. Standing alone on a balcony, Serena looks down at the ring box, her stone still aglow. She holds the box, her expression turning from surprise to resolve. Looking out from the balcony, she affirms her decision to see things through to the end. She recalls her past self, who only wanted to escape death, amazed that she is now willing to risk her life for Alyssa. She stands resolutely on the balcony, holding the future he offered in her hands. Firmly closing the box, she decides she can't accept his kindness yet, vowing that in 7 days, she will no longer be a saintess. She gasps in surprise, suddenly realizing the light from her magic stone has disappeared. Wham! A wave of pain hits her, and she stumbles back against the doors, surrounded by an illusion of thorns. She tightly grips the ring box as the thorny imagery closes in. Clutching her chest, she cries out as a sharp pain strikes her heart. She realizes she has only 10 more days before her heart gives out under the magic stone's pressure. Gasping for breath, she weakly pleads for a little more time. The scene shifts to a bright, sunlit day over a rocky coastline. Nobles and officials gather on a cliffside, overlooking the vast ocean. They stand together on the clifftop, awaiting the ceremony to begin. An aide urgently calls out to Prince Dietrich, who asks what's wrong. The aide reports that the king has taken the magic stone from his room, creating a potential complication for their plan. Elsewhere, the king thinks to himself, revealing he took the stone as a precaution against rebellion, and suspects his true plans have been discovered. Dietrich's expression hardens with determination, unfazed by the news. He calmly orders his aide to stand down, stating no action is required. Dietrich descends a grand staircase to meet a blond man in priestly robes. The priest greets Prince Dietrich with a smile, which the prince returns with a nod. The priest remarks that it's the first time this location has been used for an oracle ceremony and asks for forgiveness for any awkwardness. Dietrich confirms that the visitor was guided to the location without any problems. He understands the situation and states that all that's left is to stick to the plan. The priest smiles agreeably and says, "As you wish." Dietrich and Serena stand before a magnificent, towering white statue. Turning to her, Dietrich states with a serious expression that they need to talk. Serena, now dressed in her formal ceremony attire, addresses Prince Dietrich. The scenery transitions to a tranquil view of the ocean under a natural stone arch. A beautiful white cathedral stands tall against the blue sky. Prince Volkart, also in formal wear, informs Serena that he's going to join His Majesty. He notices her pale face and asks if she's all right. She blames it on nervousness. Putting on a brave face, she smiles and reassures him that she is okay. Prince Volkart offers his assistance if she needs anything more. Serena watches as a man in a red cape departs with his attendants. He reveals that since that morning, her seizures have become more frequent, but thankfully have remained private. Determined, Serena steels herself, thinking she just needs to endure the day's ceremony. She takes a deep breath, her expression a mixture of anxiety and resolve. Memory surfaces of a younger her looking up at a grand statue. In the present, her gaze is fixed forward, resolute, her hands clenched together nervously. A stern-faced Dietrich appears in his formal attire. He looks at Serena, reporting that there has been no change. Dietrich falls silent, his expression grim. An aide reports that the king has taken the magic stone, shocking Serena. Serena smiles radiantly, declaring she'll use dark magic to fight back if needed. She turns to a silent Dietrich, questioning him. He asks where she finds her courage, admitting he didn't just want to save the saintess, he wanted to save her. Dietrich smiles gently, acknowledging that her strength has now saved him in return. His confession leaves Serena stunned and speechless. She looks away, thinking to herself that she isn't strong. Her anxiety builds as she fears another seizure is imminent. Serena tells Dietrich that he has saved her too, and that she couldn't have succeeded alone. Beaming with renewed hope, she tells him, "Let's do our best." Dietrich gazes at her, his expression unreadable. They stand at a grand entrance, ready to face what's next. Serena places a hand over her heart, steadying herself. Dietrich turns and walks out into the sunlit garden. She watches him go, her expression softening. A memory of him comforting her when she felt lonely flashes through her mind. More memories follow, reinforcing her thought that he always saved her. Prince Dietrich, Dietrich pauses on the steps before a door adorned with a whale crest. Serena stumbles toward the door, gasping for breath. She's hit with a sudden seizure, realizing her heart is about to give out. Overwhelmed by thorny illusions, she collapses, admitting her fear. Tears stream down her face as the pain intensifies. Dietrich rushes to her, urgently asking if she's okay. Weakly, Serena calls out his name as he looks on in alarm. He pulls her into a tight embrace, exclaiming, "Serena, your heart!" Kneeling beside her, he desperately begs her to use the tidal flowers. Trembling in his arms, Serena apologizes and insists she's okay. Dietrich holds her closer, firmly telling her she's not okay. He confesses he doesn't want to lose her, his words shocking her. She rests against him, her expression dazed. His eyes burn with fierce determination as he holds her. He calls her name but hesitates to continue. Serena looks up, confessing she's afraid the plan will fail because of her. Dietrich gazes down at her with a conflicted expression. Gently cupping her face, he asks her to trust him a little more. Leaning close, he whispers his belief in her, and she quietly agrees. The scene shifts to a quiet, candlelit moment of shared resolve. The ceremony is set to begin on a high cliff overlooking the vast, sunlit ocean. On a rugged cliffside, Serena watches as the king and his retinue approach. A blonde official stands beside Serena as she confirms something with a simple yes. He smiles, expressing his relief that she isn't the kind of saintess who would ruin a nation, leaving her confused. The king gestures towards the cliff's edge, beckoning the saintess forward. The king's stern face appears as his name, Ferdinand, is exclaimed. Serena stands with grim determination, the blonde official behind her. The blonde official turns to her with a knowing smile, wishing her good luck. The king walks ahead, followed by Prince Dietrich and Prince Volkart. Prince Dietrich and Prince Volkart follow their father with serious expressions. Serena thinks to herself that her worries from a moment ago have strangely vanished. Her expression is resolute as she prepares for what's to come. King Ferdinand falls to his knees, looking up in shock at a towering Serena. The story pauses, promising to continue. An overhead view shows the assembled nobles gathered on the clifftop for the ceremony. The blonde official announces the beginning of the oracle ceremony. Serena watches with an anxious gaze. The royal family stands together before the assembly. Prince Volkart watches the proceedings silently, a bead of sweat on his brow. Prince Dietrich's expression is equally tense and worried. Serena glances back at the seated nobles. The narration describes the scene. Invited lords are seated, while the backbenches are filled with their accompanying families. The king addresses the crowd, welcoming them to the ceremony, as Serena realizes he plans to declare an invasion. The nobles murmur among themselves, questioning why they've been summoned. A view of the ocean highlights the strategic importance of Leerheim and Soltia. The king's address takes a dark turn as he furiously declares that Aleza will no longer endure interference and will rise. He passionately claims that with the great saintess Serena's power, it is the goddess's will for them to conquer the continent. The nobles erupt in protest, questioning the king's declaration of war and denouncing his use of the saintess as a tool. The king declares his plan to march on the continent, starting by provoking Leikheim, which sends a shockwave through the crowd. Turning to a stunned Serena, he commands her to summon the holy beast, as he orders her to find a place for it on Monaro Island. Serena clutches her chest in terror. Prince Dietrich and Prince Volkart watch with grave concern. As nobles realize the saintess is being forced into war, Serena steps forward, defiantly telling the king the holy beast will not answer him. Bathed in a soft glow, she pleads with the king to reconsider his mad plan. Enraged by her defiance, the king roars, "You dare to disobey me?" A noble speaks up, supporting the saintess and begging his majesty to rethink a war they were summoned to authorize. A mustached noble remains silent, as the king reminds him that continental expansion is in his best interest. The king tries to bribe the nobles with promises of free trade, but they see through his manipulation and declare his plan unacceptable. With a sinister grin, the king informs them that they have no choice but to accept. A sudden, terrified scream cuts through the tension, alarming the nobles. Serena watches in horror as the king's guards surround the benches where the nobles' families are seated. The nobles react with fury, calling the king a coward for taking their families hostage. The king reveals his hand, smugly telling the nobles their wives and children are his prisoners before asking their decision. The trapped nobles look on in utter despair. Serena and Dietrich are grim-faced as they recognize the king for what he is, a tyrant. Prince Volkart steps forward, denouncing his father's actions as arrogant and insolent for threatening his own people. The crowd recognizes Prince Volkart as he confidently strides toward the king. The king scoffs at his son, warning him that his fairness is a curse, and that he cannot rule a nation with kindness alone. Volkart firmly disagrees, stating the people belong to the king, and they don't need one who despises them. Stunned by this open rebellion, the king demands to know what his son just said. Volkart looks his father in the eye and declares that the kingdom of Eliza doesn't need a king like him. As the crown prince, Volkart declares King Ferdinand an oppressor unfit to rule. With fierce resolve, he demands his father be dethroned. King Ferdinand stares back in stunned disbelief. The nobles roar their approval as the enraged king realizes they've conspired against him. As Dietrich calls his father a tyrant, the king sneers, reminding them their families are his hostages. The king turns on Dietrich, demanding to know what he is doing. "Too bad," Dietrich says coolly, revealing the king's guards have been captured. He calmly explains that the guards are now well taken care of. As the freed families watch, Dietrich coldly orders his father to abdicate to his brother. The king roars Dietrich's name, furious he didn't strip him of his authority sooner. Prince Volkart points forward, ordering King Ferdinand's immediate arrest. Defeated, the king bitterly mutters about the bastards he raised. Looking down, the king sarcastically thanks them for the favor. With a cry of rage, he unleashes a blast of golden energy, screaming that they deserve to die. Serena is caught in the blast. Recognizing the sudden surge of power, Dietrich looks on in shock, realizing his father has something he shouldn't. The king reveals a glowing red crystal, a magic stone. Whoa! He unleashes a torrent of fire, sending the nobles scrambling. The nobles react in confusion, wondering how his majesty possesses a magic stone. The king stands within a swirling vortex of flames, looking down at his men. He holds the stone aloft, promising to show the fools the consequences of defying him. His power shatters the very cliff beneath their feet. Serena steps forward, her eyes blazing with determination. She unleashes her space-time freeze, recognized instantly as the saintess's magic. Dietrich desperately yells for Serena not to overexert herself. Prince Volkart urgently orders his men to restrain the king. Dietrich rushes to a panting Serena's side, asking if she's all right. Her eyes widen with lingering concern as she looks ahead. The narration explains the king's declaration was designed to sow chaos and distrust. The narrator laments that no one imagined things would turn out like this amid the fiery chaos. Dietrich pulls Serena behind him, shielding her from the onslaught. From across the water, onlookers witness the magical explosion, wondering if it's the king. Prince Volkart yells for everyone to flee to the temple for safety. He watches in horror as the king's unrestrained power causes massive explosions. Surrounded by flames, the king grimly thinks he must deal with the magic stone quickly. Dietrich holds Serena back, frustrated that he can't get close, while the king recklessly wields the stone's power. He considers using his mother's magic stone, but dismisses the idea, as fire and wind are a terrible combination. He steals his resolve, having already decided he will no longer rely on a magic stone's power. Hearing his resolve, Serena looks up at him. Clutching a small pouch, Serena declares she will erase the magic stone right now. She reveals the glowing tidal flowers, explaining they will erase Ferdinand's magic stone as well. Dietrich quickly grabs Serena and pulls her away from the fiery edge. He holds her protectively as they face the king's fiery wrath. The king's fury turns to disbelief, questioning her mention of tidal flowers. Serena throws the small pouch of tidal flowers onto the ground. Still engulfed in flames, the king scoffs, wondering if that is all she has. Serena screams in terror as something goes wrong. A sphere of immense blue energy erupts, shocking the king. Serena struggles against the overwhelming power, realizing she can't control it. The sphere of uncontrollable magic expands, engulfing everything. The king cries out as the red magic stone begins to crumble. The disintegrating magic stone falls from his grasp. Serena watches in disbelief, wondering why she missed her chance. As a blue shield forms around her, she demands to know who is interfering. Dietrich now holds a glowing red stone, as the king muses that Serena's dark magic could conquer the continent. The king clutches the stone, lost in his ambition, as Dietrich screams Serena's name. The king grabs Serena, holding a knife to her throat, vowing to take her magic stone immediately. Prince Volkart cries out Serena's name in terror. Held captive, Serena tells the king his cruelty is pointless, warning that a hero will rise to defeat him. As she declares his kingdom will be destroyed, the enraged king screams for her to shut up. A sudden thought realizes this is just like in the novel. Splat blood flies through the air. Serena stares in shock as a gloved hand blocks the blade. Dietrich intercepts the knife with his bare hand, blood dripping from the wound. He stands defiantly between his father and Serena, protecting her. Dietrich coldly asks the king how many more saintesses must be sacrificed. He roars that the saintess is not a tool, screaming his father's name, Ferdinand. With a powerful shove, Dietrich sends his father reeling. Dietrich stands tall over his defeated father. The king lies on the ground, as Dietrich and Serena look on. Nearby, Prince Volkart is confused, wondering what it means for saintesses to create magic stones. Serena notices Dietrich's bleeding hand with alarm, but he insists the injury is not serious. As Serena uses her magic to heal Dietrich, the fallen king mutters about the tidal flowers. A strange light envelops Dietrich and Serena, who look up in surprise. Suddenly, the cliff beneath the defeated king gives way. Dietrich calls her name as the ground crumbles, and a smiling Serena begins to fall. The entire cliff face shatters, plunging into a deep abyss. Dietrich leaps after Serena, catching her as they fall together into the darkness. They embrace while plummeting into the chasm below. Splash! They disappear beneath the churning surface of the water. From the remaining ledge, a horrified Prince Volkart screams both of their names. Prince Volkart and his men can only watch the vast, empty water where the two vanished.